Start by establishing a quorum, please.
Dr. Nunez?
Here.
Dr. Waterhouse?
Here.
Dr. Noland? Dr. Sullivan?
Here.
Jennifer Laredo?
Here.
Kathy Bowler?
Here.
Lee Heller?
Here.
Judy Mancuso?
Here.
We have a quorum established.
Okay. Our first item is a petition for reduction of penalty for Ms. Jennifer Harrison.
Hi, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
And representing the state is not arrived yet,
Oh.
so they're trying to locate her. So
Okay.
we're just going to be delayed just a bit until she arrives.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Harrison, if you please come back to the table.
Thank you.
All right, before we get started this morning, I just want to let you know, we have a court reporter here. She's going to be taking down everything that's going to be said during this hearing. Once I have asked her to go on the record, I'm going to announce your case, and then I'm going to provide you just a brief overview of what you can expect this morning, all right?
Yes, thank you.
All right, counsel, are you ready?
Just about.
All right, just let me know when you're ready.
Just 1 second. Sorry. Seem to just, there's a document that I need and I can't find it. If you could just give me 2
Of course,
minutes.
just let me
Sorry.
know.
And I had it yesterday, so I know it's here. Well, I'll just proceed.
All right, then on the record. Good morning, we are on the record. It's July 21st, 2016, in the matter of the petition for reduction of penalty of Jennifer Harrison. This matter is being heard by the California Veterinary Medical Board, Department of Consumer Affairs, State of California. This is OAH case number 2016-061-062, agency case number IA 201322. My name is Marcy Larson. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings. I'll be presiding over the matter this morning. I will ask that all the board members please identify themselves for the record, starting to my left.
Mark Nunez.
Joe Waterhouse.
Kathy Bowler. Judy Mancuso. Lee Heller.
Jennifer Laredo.
Richard Sullivan.
We do have a quorum present. May I please take the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General?
Good morning. My name is Diane Sokoloff. I'm a supervising Deputy Attorney General.
And Ms. Harrison, you're here representing yourself this morning, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Before we went on the record, I just briefly explained that I would announce the case and then I would explain to you how the hearing was going to proceed this morning. Ms. Harrison, you're here today because you filed a petition for reduction of penalty.
Yes.
And the proceeding here today is primarily related to the rehabilitation that you've undertaken since your license was disciplined. The Deputy Attorney General will proceed first. She will explain to the board members what's included in the petition package and give just a brief historical overview of your license and discipline in this matter and your probation. After that, you'll have an opportunity to present your case. If you brought any documents with you that are not included in the petition package, you can present those documents at that time. Do you have anybody here to testify on your behalf other than yourself?
My mom's here if need be, but nobody with a license or.
All right. So you'll have an opportunity to present your case. I want to remind you that the board members do have the benefit of the petition package and the information you included in there, so you don't necessarily need to repeat anything that's already in there. After you're done presenting giving your testimony, the Deputy Attorney General will have an opportunity to ask you some questions, and then the board members will also have an opportunity to ask you some questions. And then at the very end, if you wish to give closing remarks, both you and the Deputy Attorney General can do so. All right?
Thank you.
All right. Any questions before we get started?
No.
All right. Counsel?
Good morning. My name is Diane Sokoloff. As I said, I'm a supervising Deputy Attorney General, and I'm appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 4887 and Government Code Section 11522. My first question is, do you have the exhibit, which is the investigator's report, already marked into evidence?
Nothing has been marked into evidence.
Okay.
I'm going to have you go ahead and walk through that information, and then I will ask Ms. Harrison if she has any objections to any of the documents that are set forth in the petition package.
Do you all have a copy of it?
I have a copy. Yes.
Okay. Then I'd like to ask that the investigator's report be marked into evidence as complainants or as Exhibit 1 with the accompanying documents.
Okay, so counsel, if you could, I have a petition package in order. So typically what I would do is I would mark the petition package.
That's fine.
You may. Yes. The entire document?
Well, that's the document that you have, and so we will mark that as Exhibit 1, unless you have a different preference, because it's all already prepackaged.
That's fine.
Okay.
Is this the entire set of documents that you have to present?
That is the entire set of documents.
That's fine, we'll just mark that, and then as Exhibit 1. And Ms. Harrison, do you have the petition package in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
And Ms. Harrison, any objection to any of the documents contained in the petition package?
No, ma'am.
Then the petition package, Exhibit 1, is admitted.
Actually, I believe she does not have the copy. I'm sorry, I don't mean to correct you, but she has a copy of her mitigation package in front of her. But I don't believe you have a copy of the petition package.
Counsel, she's entitled to a copy of the petition
Right.
package. Do you have an extra copy you can provide her?
Yes, because,
So Ms. Harrison, I want to have you go ahead and take a moment to please look through the petition package to make sure that you don't have any objection to any of the documents in the petition package.
Okay, this isn't the one that I submitted to you.
no, the petition package is what the board presents. And it collects all of the information. It's most of the information I know that you guys will look through.
Thank you.
Okay, take your time. There's no rush. So just,
Is this
it's
the same thing with this isn't changed, right? Is this
No, there's no change. What it is a statement of issues, which was filed to choose the election. Then it's the stipulation that you entered into, and that's essentially what this is. And then this document.
This is all my stuff.
This
and I
is your
submitted
stuff.
to you.
Exactly. Right.
Okay.
So it's just a combination of the.
Okay, what have I got? Okay, thank you. I'm good with this, yes.
No objections?
No objections,
All right,
thank you.
then if the exhibit package petition, or exhibit 1 is admitted. Counsel? you may
Yes.
continue.
These documents consist of the investigation report, which it would include the statement of issues, the stipulated agreement, and then it also includes the petitioner's packet, which is the petition for reduction of penalty, her rehabilitation efforts, her reference letters, as well as her continuing education documentation. And that is the entire packet that has been presented to you. So has it been admitted?
It has.
Thank you so much. Now, I'd like to present a summary of the case, if it please the court. This case comes because of a statement of issues, which was filed on February 11th, 2014, relating to most of the case has to do with conviction. And respondent was convicted on October 16th, 2008, of a misdemeanor violation of Penal Code Section 480, Subdivision A, which is grand theft by embezzlement, and a misdemeanor violation of Penal Code Section 530.5, Subdivision A, of identity theft. The court sentenced respondent to 10 days in Ventura County Jail, but approved her for the work release program and placed her on 36 months probation with standard terms and conditions. Now, the basis for her conviction was that on November 16th, 2007, her employer contacted the Simi Valley Police Department when he noticed that 6 checks had been made payable to his employee without his permission. The total loss calculated by her employer was $2,600, and when she was initially contacted by the police and asked about the issue, she was initially untruthful, but eventually admitted to taking the checks and using an ink stamp to put an authorizing signature on the checks. She told the officer she used the checks to pay for rent and to buy food, and she also admitted to using them to buy drugs to help, as well as to help a friend who was in jail. She was also, this statement of issues also alleged a second cause for denial of the application for acts involving dishonesty and fraud related to the check issues described above, or just previously described. And then the third cause for denial is unprofessional conduct because of using a controlled substance. Separately, on July 7th, 2007, the Ventura County Sheriff's Department conducted a search, a probation search, because she had already been on probation for the other offense. And at that search, they asked her if she had anything on her. She said she had a pipe, and the deputy found a glass smoking pipe with black residue in the bulb. And the deputy observed that her pupils were very dilated, and she was nervous and fidgety, and her pulse was 132 beats per minute. So respondent was transported to the Moore Park Police Station, where she submitted to a drug abuse recognition, a DAR evaluation, and provided a urine sample. She admitted to smoking methamphetamine in the morning to help her wake up so she could buy a car. Then in December 7th, 2014, Ventura County deputy made a traffic stop of her vehicle for violations of the vehicle code, or of a vehicle for violations of the vehicle code. She was a passenger in that vehicle, and when the deputy contacted the vehicle, they noticed that her pupils were dilated and she appeared to be under the influence of some drug stimulant. The deputy observed a rapid carded pulse, and when he asked her to close her eyes, he saw rapid eyelid flutters. So she appeared as if she was on some sort of amphetamine drug. They conducted another DAR evaluation and collected a urine sample. She admitted to smoking a bowl of methamphetamine earlier that day. On November 29, 2005, the Ventura County Sheriff's Department made contact with her, and she was sitting in the front passenger seat of a vehicle. They noticed, again, this similar type of behavior and activity, and he could also smell marijuana coming from the respondent. They, again, conducted a DAR evaluation and observed signs and symptoms of drug use. He asked her if she had used drugs, and she said she had smoked crystal, she's in quotes, crystal, twice a day. And she, again, provided a urine sample and submitted to a DAR evaluation. The fourth cause for for denial in the statement of issues was for violations of the Veterinary Medicine Practice Act. And those were related to the issues or the circumstances discussed above. The fifth cause for discipline or cause for denial was acts warranting discipline of a licensee, including Section 4883 Subdivision A for sustaining a substantially related conviction, 4883 Subdivision G for unprofessional conduct, and 4883 Subdivision C for violating the provisions of the Veterinary Medicine Act. That summarizes the allegations that were included in the statement of issues. Later, on August 28th, 2004, Ms. Harrison entered into a stipulated settlement with the board. And that stipulated settlement provided for a variety of probationary terms that she would agree to satisfying. the board agreed to allow her to take an examination for registration of the her veterinary, registered veterinary technician license. And then if she passed it, she would have to satisfy other terms and conditions, including 5 years of being on probation, and then standard terms and conditions of probation. In addition, she had to undergo a psychological evaluation, psychotherapy, medical evaluation, engage in a rehabilitation program, submit to drug testing, abstain from controlled substances, abstain from the use of alcohol, and submit to an ethics training course. Before you now is Ms. Harrison, who is seeking to reduce her probationary term. And she has provided a packet of mitigation-related documentation. She filed her petition on April 2nd, 2016, and in that she included a variety of information that she would like the board to consider, including her own statement and a letter from Dr. Tellarico, who speaks well of her, and that is contained in the portion identified as rehabilitation efforts of Exhibit 1. She's also included her Narcotics Anonymous meeting attendance record and a detailed description of her rehabilitation efforts. That is a letter by her written to, presumably, the board, and that is the third item in the first portion of her mitigation packet. She's also included reference letters from Dr. Richard Knighton, who is a Los Osos, OSOS, pet hospital owner, Dr. Terilyn, MEUSEL, DVM, who is a NIPOMO cat and dog hospital associate, and Bryson Platter, PLATTER, who's an RVT, BS, and CVPM, also from Los Osos Pet Hospital Practice. Oh, he is the Los Osos Pet Hospital Practice Manager. She has provided a list of her continuing education that she's completed, which includes veterinary law and ethics from Iowa State University for 13 hours, public service ethics education for 1 hour and 14 minutes, otitis externa, which is OTITIS EXTERNA from Merck and MCVMA, which was an hour, the 3 Ps, what you need to know, from Merck, which was an hour, infectious diseases, Muriel Henry Schein, SCHEIN, MCVMA for 2 hours, dental positioning training from Midmark Academy for 4 hours, oral diseases and flap techniques from Hills Science Diet, MCVMA for 2 hours, a new approach in dental care, Muriel, MERIAL, and MCVMA for 1 hour, and nutritional support by Bayer and MCVMA for 1.5 hours. I'm prepared to proceed with questions for Ms. Harrison unless she wishes to make an opening statement first.
Okay, so Ms. Harrison, I'm going to go ahead and swear you in, and then you can provide any information that you would like to the board, and then I will give council an opportunity to ask you some questions. Will you please stand? Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please have a seat. Because we have a court reporter here, we're gonna make sure that your name is spelled correctly, so if you could please state and spell your name for the record.
Yes, ma'am. It's Jennifer Harrison. That's Jennnifer. Last name is Harrison, Harrison.
Ms. Harrison, you may now testify to anything you would like the board to consider.
I would like to address something that was brought up in the, and I'm sorry, you're a district attorney?
Attorney General.
Attorney, I'm so sorry. That was brought up earlier in the stipulated, the terms, the statement of issue. I'm not really sure that it's gonna be too important, but there was a point in here, and, it was about the second, arrest, I had it marked and then I stood up and that was not good, so. Oh, was it the statement of issue, is this part? Sure, it was the stipulation. It was, no, it was the statement of issue, yeah, thank you.
Here, was it
Here.
page 7?
It was on page 6 of this. It was about a probation search of a residence in Moore Park. I was not on probation during this time. This was not a probation search of my residence. I'm not denying the accusations and the issue that was here. I'm just, I want to bring it to the attention that I was not on probation at this time. I had not been on probation other than the original conviction in the second conviction in 2008 when I had 36 months of probation. That's the only time I've been on probation. So I just want to make that very clear that I was not in the appropriate place, and I do admit to that. However, I was not the person that was being searched and on probation at that time. So I just would like to clarify that.
So it was somebody else's probation and you happened to have been there?
I was there, yes. I'm not going to deny the fact that at that point I was under the influence. I'm not denying that aspect of it, just the fact that I want to make it very clear I was only on probation once. Thank you. I believe that's,
So, Ms. Harrison, this is your opportunity to explain to the board your rehabilitation, the reasons why you're seeking the reduction in the
Thank you.
penalty of your probation.
okay, thank you. So I applied for this reduction of penalty when I originally got this petition, or when I originally got these, the statement of issue. I have to say I was actually pretty appalled at myself. There was a lot of stuff, it was a big eye-opener. I realized that there was a lot of wreckage and damage that I had caused while I was under the influence of controlled substances. At that point, I had already had about 6 years clean off of drugs and alcohol. I had realized that I was making a lot of poor choices in my life, and I had already started the rehabilitation efforts on my own prior to starting my license, pursuing my license. During the last year and a half, or the last year, I feel what I've done is above and beyond what the board has asked me. I was asked to do 12 hours of ethics training for my statement, and I've done over that. I've done 14 and a half hours, or almost 14 and a half hours of ethics training at my own expense to make sure that I was doing it appropriately, and I did not half-heartedly go into that. I've done a lot of Narcotics Anonymous meetings, which was another stipulation of our agreement. I had been doing those up until that point anyways, 3 to 4 times a week on my own accord prior to being requested to do so for the medical board. And I continue to do that and continue to do that so today. I've also gone beyond that, and I go into facilities for women at this, facilities for women that are incarcerated for similar issues that might have to do with narcotics or illegal substance abuse uses. And so I go into facilities and explain my situations with them and tell them that and show them that there's a different way of going about life without the use of drugs and alcohol. I'm really nervous, I'm sorry. I don't do well in front of boards, pardon me.
Ms. Harrison, one thing we can do is we can have council ask you some questions, and that may
you.
prompt you to remember additional things. And then if there's anything you'd like to add after she's
Yes,
done
ma'am.
asking you questions, the board will also have, board members will also have an opportunity to ask you some questions, so that also may prompt some additional information that you may recall, all right?
Thank you.
All right, council, any questions?
Sure. What do you think caused your behavior that gave rise to the statement of issues, the charges that were brought? Can you describe a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I had been married several times. I'd been married twice at that point, and I was going through my second divorce. And
How old were you?
the first time I was married, I was 19. The second time I got married, I was 24, I believe. And things just weren't working out the way that I expected them to when I was younger, and so, or that when I got married. And I was in both abusive relationships, and so.
You're fine.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're fine. You can take a minute. Just remember what you're doing. Just tell me. Like, they just want to hear your story.
Pardon me. I had, with my second husband, we were in the military. He was in the military, and I had moved back to California after our divorce was going through. And I had started working for a company that was pretty stressful. I had taken a hiatus. I had been working in the veterinary field up until that point since I was about 15 years old. And I had gotten to a point where it was very devastating. When I was back east, we were putting a lot of animals to sleep. I was working in a shelter. I was working in emergency, and with my state of mind being very upset because of my pending divorce, moving back to California, and being on my own again, I was in a very depressive state of mind. Thank you. In the process of all of this, I had gotten a job that was not in the veterinary field, and it was a lot of long hours, and it was overnight shifts, and I was working on a property where I was alone a lot, and I had let my depressive state get the better of me, and I ended up in a car accident that was pretty physically altering. I did some minor damage to my brainstem. I did some damage to my back, and in the process, they started me on some pain medications, and the pain medications took the pain away, and they also took some of the mental status away that I was dealing with, and some of the mental anguish that I was dealing with. I was introduced to drugs. I was introduced to methamphetamine, and it really helped take that pain away. And so I flew at that, and in the process of feeding my addiction, I did some things that I'm not proud of.
So what have you done since then that has affected the course of your life in a positive way?
Thank you. I joined Narcotics Anonymous on November 21st of 2007. I got a sponsor. I started working some steps. My first year of recovery, I quit using all drugs. I didn't use any mood or mind altering substances. Quit drinking. There was a stipulation of this 12-step program that I enrolled myself in. I went to courts. I was battling those charges. I was facing those charges of that I was later on that I have the misdemeanors for.
And when was that? What year? How old were you when you started on the road to recovery?
It's 2007. I believe I was 33.
So it was 9 years ago?
Almost.
Okay. And then, since then, for 9 years, have you been on the straight and narrow?
I have been. I have not used any mood or mind-altering substances since then. I've not drank a drop of alcohol since then. I have continued to go to meetings. I've continued to be a big part of that environment where I speak at local conventions. I speak at meetings, rehab facilities. I give my story to other men and women, again, to express that life is different without drugs and that life is possible without drugs. A lot of times as an addict, that's not something that's a realization for people. They think that, and I was in the same process, that you think that you can't survive without it. You can't, that you can't survive without the alcohol or without the drugs in your system. And it's possible to do so. And I'm one of the few, there's very few of us, but there's so many of us that have gotten over the addiction process and been able to live a different way of life without using drugs. I've also been able to, again, like I've said, share my experience, strength, and hope with other women and men. I've been able to sponsor other women. I currently have 5 girls that I sponsor that are all working steps and are all trying to better their lives, and they're all productive members of society today. They all have current jobs. They're doing very well in their life. And I don't take credit for that, but I attribute to the support of them. I'm a member of my family again, which was something that was very huge. I lost my family due to addiction, and because of my state today, because of being clean for almost 9 years, I don't give myself any fronts today. I will have 9 years in November, so I have a little over 8.5 years clean today. In that time, I've been able to repair those broken relationships with my family. I have amazing friends in my life, and I don't go anywhere where there's drugs or alcohol in my world today. I've maintained employment since then, a consistent employment since then with in the veterinary field since 2009 or 2008. My first job as a my first job clean was in 2008. I started February 1st of 2008, and I've maintained employment in the veterinary field since then.
What are some of the places that you've worked? So what was your first job?
My first job was East Ventura Animal Hospital in Ventura, California. And
what did you do?
I started off as a veterinary assistant there. I became a nutritional advocate for our practice. I attended several nutritional seminars. I got certified through Hill Science Diet, Royal Canin, and Purina to talk about and discuss nutrition with clients, to educate clients on the importance of nutrition and the health of their pets.
How long did you work there?
I worked there for 4.5 years.
Okay, and then where'd you go after that? About 2012.
Yes, I traveled up north to Santa Maria, and I had a couple of short-time employment looking for the right job for me. I worked at Napomo Dog and Cat Hospital. I did not work with Dr. Musil at Napomo Dog and Cat Hospital. Even though she's an associate there now, she was working at Los Osos with me. That's where I know her from.
Okay.
I spent about 2 years at Los Osos Animal Hospital more recently. I spent about 2.5 years at Central Coast Pet Emergency. I also worked at a Rio Grande Animal Hospital. During that time, I worked at Orchid Veterinary Hospital as well. They're all in the same area.
Did you work at them at the same time and just do the hours?
I did. I worked the Pet Emergency and Orchid at the same time. I also worked part-time at 5 Cities Veterinary Hospital at the same time. And then I was working overnights at the emergency center, and I chose to become a lead assistant at the time at Los Osos Pet Hospital, and I moved there, and I've been there ever since, and then became their lead RVT when I received my license. I did pass the test. I passed both the state boards and the national boards, something I'm very proud of. Because I also did it through the alternative route program, so I think that that's a little bit more challenging, sometimes not to have that formal education, but being able to do something with myself.
Are you still the head RVT?
I'm not, actually, I've moved down here, I'm sorry, not in Ventura. I moved to Simi Valley just recently, about 6 weeks ago. My mother has some health issues, and I was allowed to move back home to take care of my family. And so I moved back to Simi Valley, and I'm now currently a technician at a veterinary specialty service. I'm a surgical technician at this point
In Simi Valley?
in Thousand Oaks.
Oh, okay. Okay. You mentioned it in, just as you were speaking and filling in with a lot of detail, some certifications. So I wonder if you can list, if you have a recollection, or if they are listed anywhere in your mitigation packet, your certifications.
So currently, I just hold the RVT title. I'm a nutritional advocate for Hill Science Diet, Royal Canin, and Purina. I don't know, however, at this point, if those are still valid. Those are something that once I got my RVT, I continued to educate myself in, but as far as the certifications or the certificates, I have not pursued, I don't know that it's necessary to pursue continuing them on a monthly, or on a yearly basis. It's just a certificate that I hold. I am working towards my specialty as soon as I get my 2 years, which is a requirement. The RVT is to have 2 years as an RVT in order to pursue a specialty. And I am looking at pursuing my nutrition and my dentistry specialty.
Okay. Now, you've presented the board with a series of letters,
Yes.
one from Dr.
Tellerico.
Why did you include that letter, and what are the highlights of that letter?
Dr. Tellerico was a doctor that I had found when I was looking for somebody to do my medical evaluation and my psychological evaluation as stipulated by my terms. I met with him several times, explained to him what I was originally requesting to see him for, gave him a copy of the stipulations, and asked him if he would be willing to write me a letter to the board stating that he did the evaluation. And his evaluations does state that some of the things that I had mentioned to you, that I do have a sponsor, that I do continue to work a 12-step program, that other than some allergies, I'm mentally fit to do my job, I'm physically fit to do my job. He also states that he does not, that he feels that that she does not have any impaired abilities to safely practice as a registered veterinary technician, and he doesn't believe that my abilities would be impaired due to any mental or physical illnesses. And he also believes that I did not need to continue any psychotherapy at this time, but he did urge me to continue my 12-step program, which I have done so. I also submitted, and unfortunately I do not have a copy of it. I was told that they would have a copy of it in my packet by my probation monitor. A letter from another doctor who was a psychologist, and he did a psych evaluation and was submitted directly to the board, or to my probation monitors. I never actually received a copy of it. I did request a copy of it, but he also said the same generalized, well, my understanding is that he was also on the same terms that I did not need any continued psychological evaluation.
Who did you submit that document to?
It went directly to my probation monitors, Christy Bell and Jaspreet Pablam.
Okay. Let's take a hold on that for a second. I'll just hold off on seeing if we have a copy of that, because I don't think it's in the packet that was presented to you. Now, also, there were 3 other letters that you submitted in your packet. Are there particular, did you work with Dr. Knighton?
Yes.
Yes?
So Dr. Knighton was the practice owner and my boss at Los Osos Hospital. I worked with him approximately 2 years, the last 2 years, prior to me moving back here to Simi Valley. I worked with him. He owned the practice. Dr. Musil, who was the other veterinarian there, she worked with us for She worked there for quite a while. I worked with her for about a year as an assistant, and then I got my license, and I was able to work with her for about 2 months as a licensed technician. I chose these two veterinarians based on the criteria of the packet of reduction of penalty. It says that I needed to have two veterinarians that I work with, letters that were certified letters of reference from two veterinarians that I had worked with while licensed as an RVT. I had only worked at one practice since I've been licensed, so up until within the last few months, or a few weeks. So these were the two veterinarians that I had worked with most recently, and that's why I did choose them. Previously, I had, and I do have copies of those, I had letters, I believe I do, letters for my original petition for my license. I had submitted other recommendation letters from other veterinarians that I had worked for currently at the emergency center. And
So you're talking about when you applied for
Yes.
licensure? Okay, and then you had letters that you submitted in conjunction with that application?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, those are not in front of the hearing panel.
Ms. Harrison, did you bring copies of those letters?
I believe I did. I know I have a copy. I'm not sure that it's copies.
Do you have a copy that you can provide to the board?
I don't.
Not with you?
Not with me. I know.
So, if you would like to just provide information about that.
That's what I was just, so those, why don't you, is there anything in those letters that are not part of the packet that was not stated by some of the people who have provided letters? Or do you think that the people who have provided letters describe the information in general that is contained in the letters that are not in front of the board?
I believe at the point of the letters prior, the letters that I have that I submitted originally, the only benefit that they would have, because these ones the ones that I've provided do have the information I believe requested, and the burden of proof is in the letters, I believe, would be the right term. But those letters just go to show that I've been doing the things that I need to be doing for the right reasons for a while now. So it's just it would just be more of a long-term that I'm doing well.
Okay. Now, you, in terms of your criminal status with the criminal violations and your convictions, you were put on probation for those, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you completed your probation?
Yes, ma'am. All of the information about my probation and all of the information pertaining to the 36 hours of probation, the 100 hours of community service, the restitution that I was ordered to pay, all of those were submitted with my original packet to take my license. And as working with the district attorney, it was entered in at that point. And with all of that information is where I was able to take where they authorized me to take my test, and then put the terms of probation from the medical board on me.
From the veterinary medical board?
Veterinary medical.
Okay, so what you're saying is you've completed your criminal probation
Yes, ma'am.
and satisfactorily satisfied all of the requirements of that probation?
I actually completed my probation early. My 36 months of probation was terminated early due to good behavior and compliance, so.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question, which is, so you entered into a stipulation with the Veterinary Medical Board on August 28th, 2014.
Yes, ma'am.
And at that time, you were placed on a 5-year probation.
Yes, ma'am.
So what you're here for right now is to ask that it be reduced.
Yes, ma'am.
And it looks like you're asking for 3 years reduction.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so can you explain to the board why they should reduce your probation from 5 years to to 2?
I truly believe that I have done what I needed to do to correct the situations that I was partaking in prior. I've done everything on my own accord prior to getting on probation for the medical board that was required of me by the state or by the county. I'm not even sure who it was, but my probation people in regards to my charges. So everything that I was charged with, I've already paid my restitution for. I've already done the terms of that probation. I've already paid my
Fines?
I've done my restitution for sure. I've already taken care of everything that I needed to do prior to getting licensed. I've done I've already made the decision to turn my life around prior to getting my veterinary license, or veterinary technician license. Since I've been on probation, I've done everything that's been asked of me, and then I've gone above that, of everything that's been put on for those terms of my probation. I've submitted to drug testing 3 to 4 times a month as requested by the medical board. I have not had a positive test, which, I don't expect that I would. So I've also done all of the things that they've asked me to do as far as the terms of those, the psychological evaluation, the medical evaluation. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do drugs anymore. I don't partake in the activities that I was partaking in prior to. But I would like to stress the fact that I had already done all this prior to the board's recommendation of these terms. And so at this point, I honestly feel that a continued in probation terms is, with all due respect, a little redundant for what I've already done.
So how long were you on probation for the criminal conduct prior to being placed on probation with the Veterinary Medical Board?
I don't have those numbers exactly.
Approximately.
But I believe it was approximately 20 months.
Okay, so almost 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've been on this probation for 2 years.
Oh, a little over a year.
Oh,
My license was in 2015.
that's correct. You signed the stipulation in 2014, and then you took your
Yes.
exam. Okay, and one last thing I wanted to ask you. You mentioned that you worked with, or have you done do you do any volunteer work?
I do. So I did up until about 5 or 6 weeks ago when I moved back to take care of my mom. I was volunteering. I did a little bit of volunteer work at the animal shelter. They had a prison program for inmates that were associated. The prison was right next to the animal shelter, and so the women in the Honor Farm were able to go over to the animal shelter and do the cleanings, and it was an outreach program that they had in our community in San Luis. And I was able to go and work with them, teach them about animal handling, how to properly remove an animal from its cage or its run. How to properly feed. I was able to educate some of the inmates on how to properly take care of the animals there. I did some volunteer work, like once a week I went into the facilities as well, and I shared my experience with them. I also would listen to their stories and try to help them find a different alternative to what they were doing, the violence that they were committing, the crimes that they were committing. None of that I was paid for. That was all volunteer work. I continually volunteer my time to help I strongly believe that that addiction is a disease. And so I do everything in my power to try to help in any way that I can with other women. I try to stick with the women in order to show them, again, I can't stress that enough, that you can be a productive member of society, and you can do really great things with your life without using drugs. And there's alternatives to that. I go in and I speak at different sober living houses. I've spoke at local conventions pertaining to 12-step addiction problems. I volunteer. I volunteered my time at different animal functions in the park, mutts in the park, or dog days in the beach, or we had a Boston Day at the beach not long ago before I moved to Simi Valley that I participated in. I do what I can. I'm also, actually, thank you for reminding me, I'm also the 4th District RVT representative for the CVMA. That's something that I was very proud of, too. That was I believe a selected position is the right term for it. So I was asked to sit on that position, and I'm still maintaining that. I was able to help, and that's a volunteer position.
Is there a financial burden to you for being on probation?
There is. So currently, the terms of my probation say that I have a $100 monitoring fee every month, which I'm compliant with and have been compliant with. There's also testing fees associated with the drug testing. It's $63 for each test form that I have to do. I have to do 3 to 4 tests a month. There's also testing fees that can range anywhere from $25 to $53 in my area, depending on what facility I need to test at. So there's about a $600 a month financial burden. The ethics course that I took was about $700 to take that ethics course through Iowa State. I can't say that I would have taken that necessarily if it had not been requested that I take ethics training. I did get a lot out of it, but I don't believe that I just would have arbitrarily gone and taken an ethics course.
Does the cost per month have any effect on you in terms of your income?
Well, they say we don't get into this field for the money, so I don't make a lot of money, but I make enough to get by. I did move back in with my parents recently, so I am a little bit less financially burdened in that respect, but I still pay my own way, and, I do live paycheck to paycheck. So it would be nice to have that extra money to put towards, my bills or my education or the pursuit of my specialties, because that's going to get expensive too, so.
All right, I don't have any more questions. The board might have some questions, so I'm ready to rest.
So I'm going to now open up to our board members, starting to my left with any questions.
Thanks for coming before this board, Ms. Harrison. I know that you're nervous, but I want you to know that I definitely do like seeing cases of rehabilitation. You've chosen to enter a noble profession, a profession that I'm very proud of, and oftentimes people who have been in similar situations have already paid their debt to society. But we certainly don't consider our terms of probation to be redundant, because when our clients come to us, they are entrusting to us their beloved pets. And that's a responsibility that I take very seriously. And it's a responsibility that I would expect my colleagues, both veterinarians and RVTs, to uphold as well. So that's why we have these terms of probation, to ensure that we act in the most professional way that we can. Having said that, I think that your application has shown that you have indeed rehabilitated yourself. But there's just a couple of questions that I just want to clarify in the package. And you actually already have clarified a lot of them. I did notice that probationary search that occurred happened before you were actually on probation.
Yes.
But thanks for clarifying it again, but I did notice that. I also noticed in your terms of probation, you were asked to undergo medical and psychological evaluation. I only saw the letter from the medical evaluator, so I was wondering where the psychological evaluation was, and I heard that it was submitted, but just wasn't included in our package. But I assume it was, is it safe to assume that it was, you passed that psychological evaluation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then in the package there was this, what is this? Is this your narcotics?
So that is a meeting attendance card that I carried with me to meetings to show proof that I was attending meetings. It's not something that was specifically asked for. I was requested to do meetings, but I did carry a meeting attendance card with me, just to show that I was attending meetings. This is basically for 1 quarter worth of meetings. It was returned, or pardon me, it was submitted with my last quarterly report.
Okay.
So up to date, I'm still attending 3 to 4 meetings a week. This was just a brief summary or to show proof that I had been attending meetings.
Okay. And when...
Sorry about the artwork.
I like the artwork. It shows that you have chosen to surround yourself in a very positive, loving environment.
Yes, sir.
And that definitely helps with recovery.
Yes, sir.
When, in terms of probation, when you're asked to undergo random drug and alcohol testing, you call into a center every day and you ask the question, do I need to show up and be tested? I believe that's how the random drug testing works, is that correct?
It's set up a little differently. We recently just underwent a change. Previously, yes, it was where you called in daily and they said yes or no whether you needed to. It was an automated system. Currently, I get to check in on an app, so there really is an app for that. I check in daily on an app, and if it's green, I don't test. If it's red, I test.
Okay. So the one day that you missed,
Yes.
was that a day that you were asked to come in?
I don't believe so. I attempted to contact the testing facilities and ask them. They were, what had happened, sir, is I had gotten sick that day, and I had gotten food poisoning the night before, and I was extremely sick during that day, and I had forgotten to call in. It was more of I just didn't realize what time it was because I had been so sick all day. So as soon as I realized it was too late to call in, it was after 5 p.m., and at that point, after 5 p.m., you weren't allowed to call. You had a cutoff of 5 p.m. I contacted my probation monitors via email and phone call at that point. I also contacted the company that issues, it was Pharmatech at that point, that was issuing the drug test to find out, and nobody seemed to be able to get that information. I will tell you, I did test 3 times that month, which was a very normal.
So on any given day, there are certain hours that you can call in, like
Yes.
9 to 5 or something like that?
I believe it was 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. with Pharmatech, and now it's midnight to noon that I'm able to check in with the new company.
Okay. I mean, if it was a day that you were asked to go in and you were sick, that certainly is a lot more understandable than just checking an app from bedside.
Yes, sir.
But you're currently good. In August next month, you will have completed 2 years of your 5-year probation. Is that correct?
No, sir, I believe I'm completed 1 year and 2 months in August.
Okay.
I just received my license in March of 2015.
Okay. So if you were granted a 3-year reduction, you would have 10 more months of probation? Is that?
I think what she's asking for is to have her probation ended now, but the math was a little off because her stipulation was signed in 2014, but her 5-year probation didn't come into effect until she received her license, which was in 2015. So she's had the stipulation for longer than she's been on probation because the probation started after she got her exam, passed her exam, which was after she entered into the stipulation. So she's asking for more than a 3-year reduction at the end of the day.
Okay.
Does that accurately
Yes.
describe what's happening? Okay.
Okay. And the cost per month of probation, it's $100 probation monitoring.
Yes, sir.
And then the fees for testing.
Yes, sir.
And I think you said that adds up to $600 a month, is that what you
It
said?
could add up to about that, yes.
Because of all the different tests
Yes.
during the year. Okay. I commend you for being sober for as long as you had. I know that you don't have to do this. You've already paid your debt to society, like I said. You've chosen to enter into our field, and you've chosen to voluntarily put yourself on all these other terms of probation, and I recognize that, and I admire that, and I commend you. I noticed that you have five people that you are now currently sponsoring.
Yes, sir.
And so that shows your commitment to your recovery and really elevates you as a person in my
Thank
mind.
you.
So,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
All right, any questions for Ms. Harrison?
Could you describe your duties at your hospital that you're at now? What's the name of the hospital?
I'm at Veterinary Surgical Emergency Center in Thousand Oaks. I'm new hire there. I've been there less than 3 weeks. I'm still learning my duties. I am a surgical technician. I was hired as a surgical technician, mostly to monitor anesthesia, induce patients, prep them for surgery, recover them, monitor them during surgery, potentially scrub in. In fact, I am learning how to scrub in during surgeries and assist during surgeries. This is a specialty practice. I've been doing this for a while before, but to get into a specialty field, there's a lot of little ins and outs that I wasn't. It's a great learning experience, and so I'm learning. I come home every night just amazed at the new thing that I learned. I just got to learn how to do a endoscopy, which was something that I had never seen and I had never participated in my career with. So, I'm currently learning a lot. Is I think my duties at this point is to learn. So. I am in charge of patient care when it comes to their post-op care, making sure that the paperwork is all in order, charges are in appropriately into the computer system, discussing with clients the estimate of charges as well as the reason behind those charges if they were a little different afterwards, post-operative care, and then concerns with the clients that they may have. There's a lot of supportive care when it comes to clients. Like you said, sir, animals are very important to people, and I find personally too, they're like our children. So if we can offer any more support and comfort as they leave their child with us, then that's part of my job too. So.
And so you have not had any relapses since 2008?
I have had no relapses since 2007, 11/21/2007, yes.
Thank you.
I'm also assuming, thank you again for coming today and really appreciate your story and your dedication to both yourself and improvement and to animals and the clients. I assume that all the quarterly reports you filed timely, or we would see something different in our packets, correct?
Yes, ma'am, and I'm also current on my monitoring fees.
Yes, okay. All right, thank you. That's all I have, thanks.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
I want to thank you too for getting sober.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so my first question was about when did you pass, and we got that. Okay, how do you feel, what would you do if there was another catastrophic event in your life? How would you handle it now?
I can actually honestly answer that I believe that I would handle it the way that you're supposed to handle it. I would call my support group. I would call my sponsor. I would stay in really close contact with my friends and family that are in recovery with me. So I will say that early on in my recovery, we lost my grandfather, and my grandfather was probably one of the most influential people in my life. Shortly after that, we lost my grandmother, his wife, and it was within about 9 or 10 months of each other, and those 10 months were very difficult on our family, watching my grandmother slowly pass away and losing the desire to live. During that time, I stayed extremely close with my friends and my sponsor, and I called her on a daily basis. I didn't have the rapport with my family that I do today, so it was a little bit more difficult to be a part of my family's life at that moment. I will tell you, because of the issues of my past, I caused a lot of damages with my family, and the best thing that they have done for me was to cut me completely out of their life. With that being said, I was able to start gaining their trust again by being present in my family's life. I was there with my grandmother when she, well, unfortunately, I was not there when she actually took her last breath, but I was on my way to her house when that happened. I had received word at work that it was time, and my drive from Ventura to Reseda is about 45 minutes where my grandmother lived, and I was on the phone with my sponsor the entire time that happened. Almost to the day, 30 days later, almost a month later, my other grandmother had passed away on my dad's side in Fresno. So I was spending a lot of time driving, going back and forth from Fresno to Reseda between my two grandmothers. And during that time, I spent a lot of time on the phone with my sponsor. I spent a lot of time on the phone with my sponsees, the other women in my life. I absolutely have an amazing support group today. And just for an example, on the way up here, my social media is blown up on Messenger that says, you know, we're with you, our thoughts are with you, you're gonna do great, you know, various things like that. So I know that if something devastating happens.
You've been through it already.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What year was the car accident?
Car accident, I believe the car accident was in 2004 or 5. I'm not real certain on those dates.
Okay.
I can tell you that the time that I used drugs and the time span that I was actively doing bad was a very short period of time. It was about a span of 4 years, 3 or 4 years.
4 years. You did a lot of damage in 4 years.
I did a lot of damage in 4 years. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have pets? What kind of pets do you have?
I do. I have a lab Aussie mix who's about 6 years old. I have 2 cats. One was actually an inheritance from my Nana that passed away. And I have a 9-month-old kitten. Well, he's probably 10 months old now. But, and I have a tortoise. My mom also has a basset hound. So.
Wow, we got multiple tortoise people in the room right now.
The tortoise. And I also have pardon me.
No, go ahead.
I also have a 33-year-old retired Arab.
Oh, wow.
Arab,
Wow.
Arabian horse. Yes.
Okay, that is, let's see. Oh, the letters, the prior letters, and I do remember your case, and because I was one of the people that voted on it when it came to us before. And I remember that I was skeptical because you had multiple things that happened.
I'm just gonna
Oh, yeah, I can't. Okay.
We're right now, we're talking about the evidence
So
and
the
the
letters,
information that's in front of
so
you.
the letters that were in that package, here's the date. What date are the letters that she talked about that she didn't bring today? What years were those letters signed?
Ms. Harrison, if you can recall.
I don't know 100%, but I know that they were within, I applied originally for my, my original packet. I believe went in a year or two prior to me, I believe it was 2 years prior to me I was denied twice. My packet was denied twice, and I believe it took me about a year to a year and a half to actually get my packet put through to the board. The first time it was denied was for lack of, it wasn't organized enough. The second time it was put through and it was denied, which started the whole petition.
September 14th, 2012.
Okay.
They received an application.
Okay, that was.
The reason I'm asking is you said that the letters identified the longevity of how well you've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to know, based on those letters, what year those letters may have been to show that longevity.
So all of those letters were dated within a year of my petition from veterinarians and staff that I had worked with, coworkers that I had worked with from 2008 when I first got the job up until that point.
Okay. All right,
So,
very good. That's it for
yes.
me. Thank you.
Right, any questions to my right?
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Harrison. Thank
Good
you so
morning.
much for being here, and thank you for sharing your story with us. I know it's hard to tell personal things to strangers, so
Thank you.
I appreciate that this process requires that of you. I wanted to ask you, what would be the benefit to you as an RVT were we to accept your petition and reduce your probation?
The biggest obstacle that I've had with the probation, I believe, is when I found out that my mom's health was where it's at, and I really wanted to move home, and I wanted to be with her. And my biggest thing at that point was the fact that I wasn't going to be able to get a job being on probation. It's been very humbling to have to go to a potential employer and say, I'm on probation for things that I have done 10 years ago. I've been humbled several times by doing so, and I appreciate that, that every single time. It makes me really realize the effects that I've had on people and my surroundings and myself. Being off probation would help that. Being off probation would make it easier should I. It's hard for me to say this now because I found a position that I really like, and they are very okay with what I'm doing, and they're aware, and I have my letter actually from them, since it is a new job, that states that they're okay with the stipulations of terms. But I know that it would make me feel proud to be off of probation, that I have accomplished another step in an upward process for me in this. The veterinary practice is something that I've always wanted to do since I was a little girl. It would just, I believe that being off probation at this point, it would, the financial aspect of it would be nice to have the reprieve from. It would make me feel better about where I've gone in life. It would boost my I don't know what the term is for it, but I would be boosted. I'm sorry, I don't know what the term is. It's not ego, because I definitely don't feel like I have ego.
Maybe self-esteem.
Thank you. That's the word.
And how would it affect your practice as an RVT in the workspace?
This has really been a motivating factor for me. I've done a lot of CE because of being on probation, but I have some pretty high goals for myself. I don't know that, I feel like I've already received my license, and so it's really going to be up to me whether I want to boost my career or whether I don't want to boost my career. I don't feel that being on probation is like a block in that, and given those goals that I have, I believe that I'm going to kind of do those regardless of the probation terms or not. And again, I don't mean that in any disrespectful way. I'd rather not have to call in every single day to be drug tested. And it's not because I want to go out and get drunk or because I want to use drugs. It's just because it's kind of, it's a little bit burdensome. This morning, if I would have had to drug test, I would have had to find a place in Sacramento, in a city that I'm really unaware of, to find a place to drug test. I don't think that it's going to hinder my career at this point. Like I said, I have found a place that I'm very well liked and welcomed at in regards to my career. And if I can stay here for a while, you know, as long as I can stay here, or I will. So that fear of not being able to find a job is gone, but it would definitely help me in a lot of other ways. So.
Thank you.
Okay, you said you're working at a specialty hospital right now, and I know it's only been a few weeks, but in your daily duties, if you come in and it's your job to induce anesthesia, how do you access those controlled drugs? Do you go to somebody who logs it out to you, or do you have keys and access to the stock of controlled substances?
So at this point in time, there's an individual per shift that's designated the key holder, and we just go to them. I will tell you, up until I moved to Simi Valley, while I was working at Los Osos Pet Hospital, as well as when I was working at East Ventura Animal Hospital and the Central Coast Pet Emergency, I had constant access to those narcotics. I have also been at Orchid Veterinary Hospital when the Cures program came back into effect. I was working there, and they were 3 years behind on their cures. I was able to, yeah, and I hope I didn't just get them in trouble, sorry. Can you erase that? My bad. I was the one who inputted all the Cures processes. I was also the one that was in charge of Cures at Los Osos Pet Hospital, making sure that they were compliant as well. I was one of the people that have the access code for the controlled substances. My last job, I held for a very brief stint. I was the person that ordered the controlled substances. So as far as being around them, I have not been not granted access to them, so.
And then my last question is, in your letter from Dr. Tellerico, he suggested that you do not, he doesn't feel you need continued psychotherapy. Are you currently undergoing psychotherapy?
No, ma'am. I believe he was referring to the other stipulation that I needed, a psychological evaluation.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to clarify our role as it relates to probation. Jennifer kind of started on that line. Our job is consumer protection.
Yes.
And once you have a license and we have concerns, the only way we can protect the public is with probationary conditions. And with an RVT, as you have explained, they have access to some very important controlled medication. So that's why we have the probation, is to protect the public. And I think you've explained very well what you have done to reassure us of that protection. So thank you for coming today and explaining what your story is.
Thank you.
Right, any additional questions from board members? Right, any additional questions, Councilman?
No.
All right, anything you'd like to add, Ms. Harrison?
I would just like to add, thank you so much for this opportunity, and Dr. Nunez, I apologize if that came off as disrespectful. That was not my intention whatsoever. I think it was a lack of poor choice in words as the redundancy aspect goes, and I do apologize for that, and I do appreciate the opportunity to come and plead my case to you guys. Thank you.
Council, any closing remarks?
No.
All right, then is the matter submitted for the board's consideration?
Yes.
Ms. Harrison, is the matter submitted for the board's consideration?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, the matter is submitted and the record is closed. We are off the record.
Okay.
All right, I have a form that provides information on how to obtain a transcript of the hearing. The board, after they finish the petition hearings this morning, will go into closed session. You will receive a decision sometime in the future.
Okay. Good luck. Thank you. Thank you. There's mine. Know when I would know. Because that wasn't really.
Before we move on, we'll take a, well, everyone has already taken a break.
You know, there's one thing, there was a question, I don't know if we should go back on the record or not, but do you know, could she know the process for finding out when the decision's going to?
That's something you can explain to her.
Oh, okay, all right.
Oh dear, our court recorder's not back.
Mr. Ho, you can have a seat up at the table. We're just waiting for our court reporter. She should be here any moment.
This is my attorney,
All
Mr.
right.
Garcia. So he can sit with me.
Yes, we can. Counsel, do you have a card?
Yes, one moment, please. Your Honor, I just was.
You may.
One second.
Before we go on the record, I just want to remind you of a few things. Mr. Ho and Mr. Garcia, you were both in the audience during the last petition hearing. Just a few things to remind you about. We have a court reporter, and she's taking down everything that's being said. It's very important that everyone take turns. Please make sure that you finish your question before Mr. Ho answers, and likewise make sure that Mr. Ho finishes his answer before you ask the next question. Just be mindful of how fast you speak as well, just because it's difficult to take down someone speaking very quickly for our court reporter. So if you could just be mindful of that. I will announce the case once we go on the record and have everyone state their appearances for the record, and then we'll get started. All right, on the record. Good morning. We are on the record. It is July 21st, 2016, in the matter of the petition for reinstatement of Herbert Ho. This matter is being heard before the Veterinary Medical Board, Department of Consumer Affairs, State of California. Agency case number 1000246757504 OAH number 2016061-056. My name is Marcy Larson. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, presiding over the matter this morning. Will the board members please state their appearance for the record?
Mark Nunez.
Joe Waterhouse.
Kathy Bowler, Judy Mancuso, Lee Heller.
Jennifer Laredo.
Richard Sullivan.
There is a quorum present. The Deputy Attorney General, please state your appearance for the record.
Yes, good morning. My name is Diane Sokoloff. I'm a supervising Deputy Attorney General.
And counsel for petitioner.
Good morning. My name is Albert Garcia. I'm the attorney for the petitioner, Mr. Herbert Ho, who is present.
Good morning. So I briefly explained off the record just how the hearing would proceed this morning. The Deputy Attorney General will proceed first. She will introduce the petition package to the board, which will be marked for identification. Mr. Ho, since you have counsel, Mr. Garcia will be speaking on your behalf with regards to if there's any objections to the petition package or any of the documents in the petition package. Counsel then will give the board members a brief historical overview, an orientation of the petition package. It will then be Mr. Ho's opportunity to present his case. Mr. Garcia, you can ask Mr. Ho questions that you would like him to answer for the board concerning any information regarding his request for reinstatement and rehabilitation he's undertaken since the revocation of his license. After you're done asking Mr. Ho questions, the counsel, the Deputy Attorney General, will have an opportunity to ask some questions. You may object to any questions that she asks if you wish. You have to have a legal basis for the objection, but if you do have an objection, please let me know, and I'll get more information from you about that. After the Deputy Attorney General is done asking questions, the board members may also have some questions, and then if there's any additional information that you wish to ask Mr. Ho, you'll be able to do so, as well as the Deputy Attorney General, and then you may both give closing remarks. All right, any questions before we get started?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Ms. Sokoloff?
Yes. I've already stated my name, so you know who I am. I need to say that I am appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 4887 and Government Code Section 11522. I just want to confirm, do you have a packet in front of you, a relatively thick packet entitled Petition for Reinstatement? Is that what you are all looking at?
Yes, I'd like
Okay, great. So I would like to hand to petitioner's counsel a copy of the packet that that is in front of you.
Thank
And
you.
I'd like to ask, and it's really just how it pleases the board, I can ask that this entire packet be marked for identification as Exhibit 1, or I can parse out the packet into 2 exhibits.
All right, let's do this in 2 exhibits.
Okay, so the first portion of the packet, and it is unfortunately not bait stamped, but it is divided. That portion is petitioner's packet, and I think it's identified as such, and I'd like to ask that that be marked, if it's okay, as Exhibit 2, and the board's packet be marked for identification as Exhibit 1, because that's the order in which I will be discussing the information, if that's acceptable. Otherwise, I can do it the other way around, given how it's presented.
It is presented in our packet, with the petitioner's packet first.
So if your preference is to have that.
So my preference is to have it in order.
That's fine.
All right, so
So-
we'll mark the petition package as Exhibit 1.
Okay.
And the board's package as Exhibit 2.
That's,
And counsel, to the extent that you're referring to one or the other, you can identify it by board's packet and petition packet.
that'll be fine.
So it is so marked.
Great. All right, so I'm going to direct your attention to Exhibit 2 for now, because that will be the portion that I'll be handling in the beginning. And that packet contains many documents. The first portion of that packet, which is divided by which is separated by 2 blue pieces of paper, are 2 decisions. The first portion of Exhibit 2 are 2 decisions from the Veterinary Medical Board. The first decision is 4 pages, and it was dated February 18th, 1991. The second decision follows that first decision, and that is 14 pages, dated March 13th, looks like 1987. And behind that is an accusation, which is 6 pages, and that was dated November 4th, 1985. Moving on to the second portion of Exhibit 2, there is the investigator's report prepared by Magda Castro, Magda Castro. And that, was prepared by the Division of Investigation investigator, Magna Castro. That report summarizes the underlying facts. It documents interviews with various witnesses, and attachments include the petition for reinstatement, various letters to petitioner, a picture of Jerry Brown with petitioner, and a photocopy of a plaque awarded to petitioner on December 16th, 2016. It also includes the underlying information and documentation relating to this case. The original petition packet and supporting documents include petitioner's reinstatement and application form, petitioner's personal statement, 2 letters of recommendation, petitioner's CV, various examples of veterinary literature, petitioner's community service and recognitions, a live scan fingerprint report indicating no criminal record, and documents relating to petitioner's other professional licenses. Now, I'd like to summarize the case, this matter, for you. Prior to his interaction with the board, Mr. Ho practiced veterinary medicine in Canada. In March of 1976, the College of Veterinarians of British Columbia reprimanded Mr. Ho for negligence while treating a dog, and Mr. Ho surrendered his license. In May of the following year, Mr. Ho applied for a California veterinarian license. In his application, Mr. Ho misrepresented that he held a Canadian veterinarian license, but the board granted his application and he received his license on March 20th, 1978. Eventually, the board discovered that Mr. Ho's discovered his misrepresentation, along with further evidence that he had negligently treated 3 animals and ill-maintained his clinic facilities in California. So in March of 1987, the board revoked his license. In September of 1990, Mr. Ho filed a petition for reinstatement of his veterinarian license with the board. Citing his recent graduation from the American University of the Caribbean School of Medicine as a doctor of medicine, the board agreed to grant Mr. Ho a probationary license on the condition that he passed the appropriate veterinary exams within 5 years. Ultimately, Mr. Ho did not pass those exams and did not obtain a veterinarian license in California. He's filed a second petition for reinstatement, and he has included with his petition an exhaustive list of his accomplishments from the past 15 years. The accomplishments include several other professional licenses, attainment of an MBA, attainment of the aforementioned MD in the University of the Caribbean, work history, and volunteer service. And I'm prepared to start with some questions to Mr. Ho unless he wishes or his attorney wishes to make an opening statement.
I'll defer to counsel. Mr. Garcia, do you wish to make an opening statement?
Before I make that decision, Your Honor, Exhibits 1 and 2 then have been marked for identification but have not been admitted at this point, correct?
That's correct.
Right. Right. Your Honor, I'm going to be very brief with my statement. Obviously, as counsel has indicated, there is a disciplinary history here that goes back quite a few years. And the board, this board, not as presently constituted, obviously, but this board, the entity, revoked then Dr. Ho's license back in 1987 for misconduct that had occurred in connection with his application for licensure here in California by, as counsel indicated, failing to detail the, or misrepresenting that he had a license in British Columbia. And then there were also 3 separate cases involving negligence or incompetence dating from 1985. The only thing I want to stress in my opening statement is that that's part of the history here. We can't excise it. It's part of his disciplinary history. But I just want to make sure is that the focus of this proceeding today is that the focus be on what has been happening in Mr. Ho's life since 1996. And I choose that date for this reason. This board granted the petition for reinstatement that was filed back in 1990. The decision was effective in 1991, but as counsel has indicated, there was a condition precedent to the issuance of a probationary license. And that condition precedent was that Mr. Ho had to take and pass 3 examinations before that probationary license would issue. And as counsel has indicated, it didn't happen. By the way, he was given 5 years to do that, and it didn't happen. So that was 1991, that's the date of the decision. 1996 is when the 5 years expired. So I want to make sure that we're focusing on what has happened with Mr. Ho and his life and his activities since 1996. The misconduct that led to the revocation in 1987 was assessed by this board back in 1990 at the reinstatement proceeding, and there was a finding made at that time that Mr. Ho had provided and established sufficient evidence of rehabilitation to warrant the granting of his petition for reinstatement and the issuance of a probationary license. So the misdeeds that occurred, and they did occur, there's no denying it, were assessed, looked at, evaluated by this board in 1990, and this board made the determination then that there had been rehabilitation as to that misconduct. So I just want to make sure we don't go back and rehash and relive the things that this board has already determined to be, that Mr. Ho has rehabilitated himself as to those matters. So I'd like to focus on what Mr. Ho has done since 1996, and in the opening statement, I'll keep it very brief, you'll see from the petition packet here that there has been a remarkable amount of work that has been undertaken by Mr. Ho to indicate that he is, should be given a second opportunity to take that examination again and hopefully convince this board that he should be given a second chance. And the rest of it, I'll ask questions, but those are the comments that I wanted to make at this point. And I thank you.
All right, so because petitioner has the burden of proof, then you may present your case.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I appreciate that. Okay, Dr. Ho.
Actually, I have to swear him in.
Mr. Ho.
Are you going to begin questioning?
Yes.
All right, with regards, before you do that, if you're going to be referring to any documents in the petition package, counsel, do you want to, are you seeking to have the petition package and the board's package admitted?
Yes, I was going to do that.
Do you have any objections, Mr. Garcia?
I do have an objection, Your Honor, to one document only, and that's the investigation report. And the reason I have that objection, and I realize that that investigation report, as part of Exhibit 2, some of the information there obviously are the statements of Mr. Ho. Those are admissible. And I have no objection to the statements that were made by Susan, forgive me if I mispronounce his Garanin?
Garanin, yeah.
Garanin. G-E-R-A-N-E-N. And Dr. Odama, O-D-A-M-A, and Dr. Beltran, B-E-L-T-R-A-N. I have no objection to that. There's one statement in here that I do have an objection to, Your Honor. It's on page 2 of the investigation report, under narrative. It's one large paragraph under narrative. And let's see here. Way at the bottom, the last sentence, there's a statement there about some threatening that supposedly occurred. I'm going to object to that, Your Honor, on hearsay grounds.
Right, so with regards to administrative hearings, typically, as you know, in a proceeding, in Superior Court, hearsay would not be admitted for any purpose. In administrative hearings, it would only be admitted as administrative hearsay because the individual is not here to testify. Administrative hearsays essentially can be used to explain or supplement admissible evidence, other evidence that has been admitted.
I understand that.
All right, any response, counsel?
Yes, I have a response.
I haven't finished still, Your Honor. I'm sorry, I apologize.
I only want to hear a legal objection.
It's a legal objection.
Okay, so what is the legal basis?
And it's administrative hearsay.
All right.
As you explained it, to explain or supplement other admissible testimony. So I'm objecting to it on hearsay ground. It's being admitted as administrative hearsay, but I reserve the right to move to strike it if there's no other evidence, admissible evidence, as to which this statement would corroborate or explain. So in other words, it only comes in if it explains other evidence, that it's admissible. If you don't have that other evidence, it's subject to a motion to strike. So that's the only point I want to make.
So I will consider that if in fact that is an issue.
Thank you.
At this point, I'm going to allow counsel to speak to this. Counsel.
Yeah, I think Lake v. Reed, the case of Lake v. Reed might do away with any kind of objection because in the case of Lake v. Reed, if an investigator or a police officer makes a statement and that is signed by that police officer, their statements come in as direct evidence. And I think in this case, the narrative, which was drafted by the investigator who wrote the report, would fall within the confines of what's identified in Lake v. Reed as what would be direct evidence.
So with regards to Lake v. Reed, it would only come in as direct evidence if it was an observation made directly by the investigator.
Correct.
Counsel. So is it your representation that the sentence that counsel has identified is a statement based on a direct observation?
Well, it's a statement that was made to the investigator that the staff felt threatened.
That's not a direct observation.
It's not it's a direct observation of the state of mind of the people who are making the statement.
Right, that doesn't come in under Lake versus Reed. It's still administrative hearsay. If it in fact been something observed directly, the conduct observed directly by the investigator, then the Lake versus Reed exception would apply. But in this instance, because it is essentially a hearsay statement, based on information she obtained from an employee. Lake versus Reed does not count as that exception. So I'm overruling that objection, and at this point, it will be considered as administrative hearsay. Exhibits 1 and 2 are admitted with the exception of that particular statement that you've identified as administrative hearsay. To the extent that it does not supplement or explain other evidence, it will not be considered.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I apologize, but if you'll give me just one moment to look through the rest of Exhibit 2. I just came into the case yesterday, so
Right.
I haven't had a chance, but to look at everything in Exhibit 2.
All right, take a moment and then let me know when you're ready to proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. A moment, Counsel, Your Honor. A moment.
All right, we're going to go ahead and go off the record for a moment so that you can confer with counsel off the record.
Simple question for you, I apologize. So all of the exhibits, are these all attachments to the investigation report? Everything that follows here? So these were all things that were garnered during the course of the investigation?
Yeah, because if you look here.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I have no objection to any other
All right, we're
documents.
not on the record.
Oh,
We're off
okay.
the record, so you could confer with counsel, and counsel has stepped away from the table, so we'll wait till she comes back and we'll get started.
Great, thank you.
All right, counsel, are you ready?
I am.
All right, back on the record? All right, we're back on the record, so counsel could have an opportunity to confer with regards to the exhibits. And Mr. Garcia, it's my understanding you have no further objections to any of the documents in the petition packages,
Well, that's correct, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
And as I explained before, they're admitted with the exception of the statement you have identified in the investigation report, which will only be considered to the extent that it explains or supplements any other evidence. All right, I'm going to swear in Mr. Ho. If you would please stand. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please have a seat. And please state and spell your name for the record.
Okay, do I have to stand up?
No, just please speak into the microphone so we can hear you.
My name is Herbert, Herbert. Middle name L, initial, and last name Ho.
Mr. Ho, since you have counsel here representing you this morning, he's going to ask you questions, and then you can answer the questions. Unless you hear Ms. Sokoff say the word objection, if she objects to any of the questions, please don't answer the question. Just pause. I'll make a ruling on whether or not you'll be allowed to answer the question, and then I'll make sure my ruling is clear to you. After Mr. Garcia has an opportunity to ask you some questions, then Ms. Sokoff will also have an opportunity to ask you some questions, and then the same rules reply. If your counsel objects to any of the questions she asked you, don't answer the question. Just please pause. I'll make a ruling on whether or not you can answer the question, and then I'll direct you as to whether or not you can answer the question. And then after Ms. Sokoloff is done asking you some questions, the board members will also have an opportunity to ask you some questions. All right?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Mr. Ho, the board had previously granted your petition for reinstatement of license back in 1991, and that at that time, the board indicated that you had to pass 3 different examinations before the board would issue you a probationary license. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Right. Did you attempt to take those examinations that were ordered by the board?
Yes, one time.
There were 3 separate examinations. Did you attempt to take each one of them one time?
Yes.
Right. And we know from the record here that you were unable to achieve a passing score. Is that correct?
75 was the passing. I was unfortunately was told I got 72.5.
All right. Now, would you explain to the members of the board why it is that you took only one shot at these examinations? In other words, you only tried one time. You failed. Why is it that you didn't continue attempting to take and pass these examinations?
I feel very sad, sorry for myself, and then I don't have energy, and I feel very bad for myself, so I don't know other reason.
Well, if you look at your personal statement,
And counsel, is that part of the petition package?
that'll be the petition package, Your Honor. Yes, Exhibit 1. If you look at your personal statement there,
Yes.
you indicated in your personal statement that you were afraid to take the examination again. Why is that?
Well, when you receive a notice of failure, the feeling is really sad. I don't want to have the feeling again.
All right, so after you failed the examination in 1996, then the time ran out for you to pass these examinations. Did you undertake any other kind of activities after 1996 with respect to any other kinds of licenses?
Yes.
Would you tell the board what you did in terms of other licenses?
I believe it's all in the exhibit under my package. Is number 8. I got other license, including my acupuncture license in the state of California, and I'm able to treat people as well as animal with acupuncture and Chinese medicine, and I feel some reward and enjoyment doing that. And then I also have a broker's license, sell houses, and before I become a veterinarian, I attended school in University of California, Berkeley, in the College of Engineering. Later on, I did not complete. I switched to biological science. So my family was building houses as a contractor construction, and in Hong Kong. So I took part of that before, and I took part of that in Canada, as well as in United States. I'm interested in repair and building, so I got a license as a building contractor, license B, and then I also took license in engineering contractor license. I passed and got a license A, and then I got a license to treat animal, and the
Here you go.
yes, licensed by the state of California Horse Racing Board as a veterinary assistant, and I got a license in what else?
Well, if you look at page, your petition here, it's not paginated, but under documented rehabilitative efforts there,
Yeah.
you indicated you obtained other licenses.
Yeah, I'm a thoroughbred horse trainer. license. I won my share of horse racing at Santa Anita, Hollywood Park, and Los Alamitos.
And would you explain to the board why it is that you undertook to obtain these other licenses after you failed the veterinary examinations that were ordered? Why did you do that?
Mr. Garcia, I don't know why. I can't explain to you. I just feel sad and bad for myself.
Now, you also indicate that you received a degree from the University of Tennessee.
Yes. I turned my attention to management, and some friend, I'm a follower. I'm a good follower. And my friend tell me he make a great contribution, satisfactory, and manage healthcare in medicine. And then I follow him, watch him, and then I say, I can do that. So he graduated from University of Tennessee with executive MBA degree in healthcare. So I said, well, let me try. I follow him, and I passed my course. I took it. It's an MBA program, 2-year program. It's not full-time. It's on the weekend on the computer. It's called the once a month you go there. Sometimes once every 2 months you go there for 2 days, 3 days, and then it's called a residence, and then the other part is an online program. They give you a whole bunch of assigned program to do, and you submit it. It's very intense. Then you submit it and do your homework and do your thesis, and it's just like a regular MBA program, more intense. So I was very interested and happy, and I continue, and I got my MBA degree. I graduated with honor.
Okay, now going back to the other licenses that you obtained, did you have to take any tests or examinations to obtain the licenses in acupuncture and as a real estate broker, as a construction contractor, and as a horse training license?
Yes, all of them.
All right. And down at the very bottom of this page here, under documented rehabilitative efforts, you indicate that you worked as a research assistant. Would you explain what that work entailed to the members of the board?
Yes, at one time, they were recruiting facilitator, which means instructor, to the veterinary student in the Pomona Western University, to the first 2 years veterinary student. And it's called the case basis training. They teach a new veterinary student with a case and presentation and the symptom, the owner's complaint, the medical history, and then take a movie and some picture of the animal, and then the student are encouraged to make suggestions and what the problem is. As a teacher, which I was one of them, and then I don't need a license to teach there. So I encourage them to do some more reading and research. I think it's very good. But then later on, I don't have a license. I feel really bad, and students ask me, Dr. Ho, you're so good. Why don't you have a license? So I just want to cry. I just want to find a place to hide, and I get friendly with some professor there. One of them is Dr. Moses Chow. He's a research director in the Western University School of Medicine, School of Pharmacy, as well as a School of Veterinary College. He do a lot of research, and my daughter follow him and do some research. And then they are doing very exciting research work with Chinese medicine to treat cancer. As a matter of fact, he knows he indirectly know this Chinese lady, Chinese herbal acupuncture doctor that received a Nobel Prize in medicine in 2015 or 2014. So that encouraged me, you know, I should also do something to the rest of my life. And there's a researcher, a doctor in Western University. He encouraged me to participate in some stem cell research involving taking some blood from a dog, from a cat, and spring them, centrifuge them, using the supernatant. It's called PRP, platelet-rich plasma, and then you inject the platelet-rich plasma, which have a lot of stem cell, back into the joint of the animal, and it documented with success of treating arthritis, and also with an advanced technique they can regenerate heart failure, liver failure. So I feel that's where I belong. But without a license, and everybody know that I lost my license revoked, it's a shame in my life. And my daughter asked me, Dad, why don't you get it back? So I said I gave up. But then they said that my daughter's is in the, as you can see in the package, he worked for Dr. Odama in the healthcare animal hospital in Pomona, and they said, well, get it back. I said, I'm going to fail. They said, well, just try again. So that's why I'm here today.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Now, the other aspect of your rehabilitation efforts here has to do with continuing education. And very briefly, just summarize very briefly for the board members, because they have the documentation there in your packet, what efforts you've undertaken to continue in your educational endeavors and continuing education.
Okay, I'm still a member of California Veterinary Medical Association. I pay my due as a benefit. They keep sending me the literature, the California Veterinary magazine, and I'm interested to browse around. And also, I graduated from a University of Saskatchewan College of Veterinary Medicine. They keep sending me some updates, and I'm interested in keeping up with them. And the more I read it, the more I want to become a veterinarian again.
Have you undertaken to perform any volunteer work during the period of time that you've been without a license since 1996?
Yes, a lot of them. They have a free clinic in animal healthcare center where my daughter works, and they have once in a month free vaccination clinic offered to local community. I'm part of it. And then and I also have a local library, and I help out, and I also help out with the food drive with a local community senior citizen.
And if you look in your petition packet here, once again, under the documented rehabilitative efforts, you list some activities there. Are all those true and correct that you actually participated in those volunteer projects?
Yes, Mr. Garcia.
Now, the members of the board are probably wondering, I mean, 1996, that was a long time ago when you failed to pass those examinations. We're now in 2016, and I'm sure it's a legitimate question for this board to ask, is why now? Why have you waited all this time to come in and try to regain your veterinary medicine license?
Well, the main thing is I thought I would never get it, I would never pass the exam. That's one reason. Why try if you can't do it? So that's my depressed and my guilty. I'm afraid of failure. So I was turning into some other profession, and I was not total failure, was able to pass some of the exam. I passed my real estate broker's exam, engineer license as a contractor, and many other license as I submit to you. So I think with the encouragement of my daughter, my veterinarian friend, I want to try again. I want to ask the board, if possible, then give me a chance.
And you realize that if the board is convinced, and the board's mission is to protect the public and the consumers and their pets and animals, but if the board is convinced to give you a second chance, that they're going to say your probationary license is going to be subject to a condition precedent, like the last one, and you're going to have to pass those examinations before the probationary license issues. Are you willing to accept that condition?
Yes, and last time Gary Hill, who was
And in terms of the letters of recommendation, would you tell the members of the panel or the board here a little bit about your relationship with Dr. Beltran and Dr. Odama?
Oh, they are excellent veterinarian. As a matter of fact, Dr. Beltran was named Veterinarian of the Year, and he went to a lot of other countries and donated to the veterinary service, and he's a very good friend of mine. And as you see from the letter of recommendation on the package, he liked me a lot. Besides a professional, we are also personal, social friends. With and also I'm a very good, likable person, I believe, and I just received a letter, and I think that you, the board member, have it.
Hold on one second. Council
Okay.
has an objection.
Okay.
It's non-responsive at this point.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna overrule the objection. So if there's something you want to refer to, your council can do that.
Okay.
Council.
So the question I had asked of you is to kind of relate to the board members your relationship with respect to Dr. Beltran and Dr. Odama. I think you did that as to one doctor. What about Dr. Odama?
Oh, Dr. Odama loved my daughter. He thought I have the best daughter in the world because they get along very well. And he said, well, your daughter is going to make a great veterinarian. So I want to be a veterinarian. So we're side by side with my daughter in the future.
Okay, now, if it please the court, I was handed earlier today a copy of a letter that was just received by the board on July 20th. It's dated July 16, 2016, and it's on the letterhead of the Highland Park Animal Hospital. And I had not seen this document before today or just now, but it is an additional letter of reference or support from a Dr. Melvin Gerstner,
Yes.
Gerstner.
Yes.
And so I would like to have this added to the Exhibit 1, maybe Exhibit 1A, I don't know what you want to call it.
It will be marked as a separate exhibit. It'll be
Okay.
marked as Exhibit A, and please provide a copy to council first before you present a copy to the board.
I have been provided a copy.
All right, Mr. Garcia, if you please approach and provide me a copy of the
Yeah.
letter.
Your Honor, so this is Exhibit A.
It is.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may. Do you have copies for all of the board members?
I believe so, and these are kindly been provided by, I think, the Office of the Attorney General, if I'm not mistaken, no?
Council, is this a document that's been provided to the board already?
No, I don't think so. no.
All right, that's fine.
May I approach?
You may.
Thank you.
All right, I'm marking the letter as Exhibit A. Council, any objection to Exhibit A?
Not if it's being admitted as administrative hearsay.
All right, Exhibit A is admitted as administrative hearsay. right, Mr. Garcia?
Thank you very much, Your Honor. So, Dr. Ho, Mr. Ho, I apologize. Would you
Melvin Gersner.
tell the board members about your relationship with Mr. or Dr. Gersner?
Okay. As you read from the letter, so Dr. Gersner have met Herbert Ho for 30 years, and I met him as a friend from Canada, and then I did work for him as an associate veterinarian for about a year and a half, and then we continue a good relationship, and he know everything about my revocation, my problem, and he feels sorry for me, and the rest is you can read on the letter. He's highly supporting me to get my license back, and I said, well, I can't pass the exam, and then he said, don't give up. You may change your mind later. Now today I changed my mind. I want to get my license back.
All right, thank you. If the board were to grant your petition for reinstatement, and if the board were to condition that granting on you passing those examinations, and if you were to pass those examinations, what kind of practice would you engage in once you received your probationary license? What focus would you have in your practice?
Well, my first choice is small animal.
And just out of curiosity, do you have any pets or animals that you own or have?
My home is almost my daughter bring in some stray cats, some stray dog, bring it home, and we have at one time 9 cats running around, and then we have 6 turtle, the aquarium, and we have a room built for 9 birds, and I complained that I'm allergic because I got asthma, and all the dust and caused me some problem. But my wife and daughter get some filter and everything. They want it, and then we have turtles, we have 4 rabbits, and then we have 3 horses. At one time I have 19 horses. So I still ride horses, and I have one in the Brea Canyon stable, and sometimes I take my friends to go there, and it's my horse. They can ride for free, and just pay the groom some additional money to taking care of the horse for that day. So I enjoy being with the animal, especially. I can contribute to the happiness and activity of my friends.
Mr. Ho, how old are you?
How old do you think I look?
How old are you?
Okay. I don't have too many years left, I believe. I'm 70 years old. But I don't have diabetic. I have hypertension under control, diet control, don't eat too much salt, don't eat too much fat, liquid, watch my cholesterol, and I exercise regularly, and with my wife, and we have go to treadmill, walk around the block, a whole family walking around the block. We know our neighborhood very well, and I set a good example for my children, and they all very activity oriented, and they run marathon every year.
So is it fair to say that generally speaking, you're in good health?
Yes. My mother is 95, so if I can live like my mother, I have 25 more years to live, or more maybe.
And the attachments to your petition, where you have certificates for CME and seminars that you've attended, and what appeared to be the covers for several journals,
they all have my mailing label because I'm a member, so I still keep getting them.
And do you read them when you get them?
Yes, yes.
And so the statements that you've made concerning your continuing education and the supporting documentation, that's all true and correct, is that correct?
Yes.
That's all I have for now, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
All right, Ms. Sokoloff, any
Okay.
questions for Mr. Ho?
Yes. Mr. Ho, so just to understand, what are you doing right now?
Okay, right now,
What are you doing for work right now?
I'm an acupuncture doctor. I am
What?
acupuncture
Acupuncture
doctor. We're treating people, treating animal with acupuncture and Chinese medicine.
How long have you been doing that?
Long time, more than
When were you licensed as an acupuncturist?
about 30 years.
For 30 years?
Yes.
Have you been practicing in this capacity for 30 years?
Not full-time, because I work as associate for a group of acupuncture doctors.
So, do you know whether you need to have a license to treat animals in terms of, do you need a license, an acupuncture license for animals?
With a veterinarian supervision, yes, I have a veterinary acupuncture license.
Are you a veterinary assistant?
Yes. As far as the California Horse Racing Board jurisdiction, yes.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Ho is raising what appears to be.
It's included in the package
Let
already.
counsel speak.
What
Yes.
appears to be a license dated or marked with the date of August 2016, and it says ASST to VET, and it's license number 315206, and then it also says California Horse Racing Board. Okay.
And I believe
So-
that's part of the packet, by the way.
It's in the package.
So now, are you conducting acupuncture on animals that aren't horses?
Yes.
Yes. What animals are you doing acupuncture on?
Okay. Dogs.
Dogs
Yeah. Dogs and cats.
and cats?
Yes.
And where do you do that?
Dr. Beltran's healthcare.
You do that for Dr. Beltran, who is a veterinarian?
Yes.
And how often do you do that?
When they need me.
Okay, that's not an
Okay.
answer. How often do you do that?
Not very often.
How many times a week?
Sometimes twice a month.
Twice a month. And exactly what do you do when you are engaging in the use of acupuncture on dogs or cats?
Okay, I got some picture. I forgot to bring it, and so.
Well, maybe you can just describe.
Okay, just the animal is just like human. They have specific acupuncture point in the body and joined by a line called the meridian. And each meridian have its specific function, like the lung meridian, and treating area with the lung problem, and heart meridian, liver meridian, bladder meridian, and things like that. So it's a very interesting, fascinating medical technology.
And when you do this, are you in a room with the animal?
Yes.
And
Who else is in the room?
Well, who else?
If anybody, or maybe you're alone in the room.
Yes, I am alone with them, but because I'm under the supervision, not direct eyeball to eyeball supervision, and a veterinarian.
Okay, and are the veterinarians on location, or are they?
On location,
They are on location?
yes,
But the veterinarians aren't in the same room with you?
not necessarily.
Okay, and do you put the dogs or cats under any kind of anesthesia?
No,
So they're awake?
yes,
And how do you, do they move when you put the needles in them?
the owner hold them,
So the owner's in the room as well?
yes, yes.
And you also have a a license for, to do CHRB? for horse racing?
California Horse Racing Board.
Okay, and.
I'm licensed as a trainer, licensed as a veterinary assistant.
Okay, are you separately licensed as a veterinarian assistant
Yes,
for the horse racing board?
yes.
Do you hold any other license for the horse racing board?
Trainer,
So you're a trainer?
Yes.
And a veterinarian assistant?
yes.
And are you currently active and using that license?
Yes.
And what do you do for that license? What do you do with the animals,
The animal,
the horses?
the horses, well, the owner or the trainer or the groom hold the horses, and I put some needles in it.
So you're using acupuncture on the horses?
Yes,
So is your main job as an acupuncturist and using that in animals, both horses as well as dogs and cats? Is that your main form of income?
my main form of income is people.
Ms. Pardon?
On people,
Jack,
human.
Could you speak into the microphone?
Oh,
Thank you.
sorry. So my main income is from treating people.
So acupuncture on people,
Yes,
but then you also do acupuncture on the horses, cats and dogs?
yes, I'm interested, but that's not my main source of income.
Now, you're also a contractor, is that correct?
I'm an engineer contractor. I'm licensed to build casino and multiple high-rise building.
Are you currently using your contractor's license to build buildings?
My license is active, but right now I don't have any project.
And you're also a real estate broker?
Yes, I'm a broker.
And do you hold any other California licenses or certifications?
Let me see. Broker, contractor, acupuncture, trainer, veterinary assistant. I think there's 5.
And you're also a medical doctor, is that correct?
I am a medical doctor from Texas. I finished my residency in family practice. I finished my fellowship.
Did you ever work as an MD?
Yes, I work as a resident doctor in University of Texas, Houston Medical School, and Lyndon Johnson County Hospital.
And on what time frame did you work as a medical doctor?
When I was a student, when I was a resident,
Yeah, when were you a resident?
I finished my residence, I finished my fellowship 2003.
So did you start working as a resident in 2003, or did you finish working?
I finished,
So how long did you work as a resident, for 4 years?
yes, and there was 2 years a fellow.
So would you say from 1998 to 2003, you worked as an MD?
Yes. Let's see. Let me calculate. 1989.
Did you
graduate
I
from
gra-
medical school in
I gra-
1989?
Yes, I graduated, and then I began my residency 1995. I finished my residency 19. Well, I got my CV here, and I think I submitted a copy to the board. You want me to read it?
No, I mean, I just wanted to know from your recollection
Okay.
what the information was.
So can I read from here?
Sure, you can refresh your recollection.
Okay. I believe this package is in the, so,
For the record, it's referring to the CV on the packet.
okay. So I finished I got a diploma in American Academy of Aesthetic Medicine 2012. And then I finished my MBA from university.
What I'm asking you is about your doctor.
Okay.
The information relating to when you practiced as a doctor.
Okay. Now, if I read it from here, I graduated from University of Caribbean 1989 in my CV, and then I entered University of Southern California, LA County, USC, and I went to the Department of Anesthesiology 1995, 1994 in Texas, and then in USC, and then I go back to University of Texas in the Department of Family Medicine, and I graduated in 1998, and then I continue do some fellowship. I complete my fellowship 2003.
Okay. Why did you stop working? Were you disciplined as an MD?
No,
Why did you stop working as an MD?
I did not pass my step 3.
You didn't pass one of your boards?
Right, I did not pass one of my board.
Which board?
There was 3 license. There's 4 exam. Step 1, step 2, A and B, and then step 3.
How many times did you take your third board?
More than 5 times.
Did you take it 7 times? More than 7 times?
Yes.
How many times did you take your step 3 boards?
I don't remember because I don't take it all the time.
Did you take it 10 times?
Maybe, but
Possibly 15 times?
no, I don't think so.
So between 10 and 15 times?
Yes.
And how many times did you take the veterinarian license? Was that only once?
Yes. For the 1991 application for reinstatement, yes, only took it 1 time. I wish I'd take it several more times. I think I could have a chance to pass it already.
When was the first time you took tried to take your step 3 board exam for being an MD? The first time?
I don't remember.
Was it before 1991?
No.
So would you say at a period in your life, you were both trying to pass your veterinarian exam as well as your MD exam?
That's correct. So that's one of the reasons why I don't continue taking the veterinary board is because I'm afraid of fail.
Now, are you engaging in any animal testing now?
No.
When I say animal testing to you, I mean, I want to make sure that we understand each other. Are you doing anything with animals at this point aside from using acupuncture on them?
No.
What kind of volunteer work are you doing in relation to animals?
When they have a community clinic giving free vaccination, I just help out on the side because I want to be part of it and as a fulfill my requirement for the board. And I also, my daughter worked there. I want to help my daughter.
So you're doing some vaccinations?
No, I did not do vaccination. I just part of the group. I don't give a vaccination, no.
So you're working with a group that does vaccinations?
Yes.
And what are you doing as a volunteer with that group?
Well, I provide lunch, I provide help transportation, and I want to be involved. And I don't give a hand-on vaccination.
And so one of my questions is, in your packet, you had a lot of copies of first pages of the California Veterinarian magazine. That was to indicate that you had read those magazines? Is that the purpose of that?
Yes.
Now, when you were practicing veterinary, and when you were a practicing veterinarian, you were cited for, or more than cited, you were brought up on disciplinary charges for having unsanitary conditions of your veterinarian practice. Is that correct?
I thought we're not going to go back to this.
No, you answered the question.
Mr. Ho, if there's not an objection from your attorney, then you have to answer the question.
Answer the question, that's fine, go ahead.
Okay. I believe there was a long history, something that I don't want to go into, and I thought we don't need to go into. And if you want me to, I have to go ask for permission to go a little bit further, then I can explain this problem. So may I just go ahead and...
I mean, if he's going to be able to answer my question, then that's fine.
Okay.
May I have a moment with my client, please?
Counsel, if there's not an objection, he needs to answer the question.
I understand it, I want to make that perfectly clear to him, if you'll allow
Right,
me to.
I've made that clear to him,
All right.
so you may answer the question, Mr. Ho.
Just answer your question, please.
I can't answer the question until I go into a little bit further.
All right, so Mr. Ho, to the extent that you have to explain, you can provide that explanation.
Okay. It's so sad and unfortunately, I was one of your board members. I was chairman of many subcommittee in the Veterinary Medical Board. I was vice president. As a matter of fact, you can ask Susan Grennan, I was the president. I was sitting at Dr. Mark Nunes' position. And I presided several meetings. And however, over one unfortunate story, a veterinarian coming for reinstatement. I was, at that time, a relatively new board member. I followed the president, Dr. Roger. Hello. So I followed Dr. Roger Resurrection. He died already now, passed away, but he was the president, and Dr. Dodi Avero, he was a vice president. Then they took me out of the boardroom. And hello.
We can hear with the other one.
All right.
Yeah, just,
So
Mr.
he-
Ho,
he-
just, you don't need to be so close to it, you can back up just a little bit.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me now? Okay. So he took me out the boardroom and give me some update on the application of Dr. Danny Kohler, and some story that we were all supposed to review Danny Kohler's reinstatement because he got his license, like me, got a license revoked for some other reason. So after the legal counsel advised that we all decided.
Okay, Mr. Ho, I'm going to stop you because I understand that you want to give some background. Seems like it's going far afield.
It's going to finish very quick.
Okay, but I want you to focus on the question. The
Yes.
question was, were you cited or was there action brought against you with regard to sanitation issues with your practice? I'm just
Now,
going to advise you.
I've finished. Give me one more minute. I'll
All
finish
right,
it.
so if you could focus on that, though, in answering the question.
Yes. So because of this problem, Dr. Richard Stern got mad at me that I should not vote with the Dr. Roger Resurrection and Dr. Dodi to reinstate Dr. Kohler. So he's so mad. I have a letter here, I think probably in my other history of, and he swear to God that he would do everything in the world in his power to revenge my assisting Dr. Kohler to get his license back. So my hospital was perfect. I set up my hospital as an example because I'm a board member. I was a president of the board. So they came to my hospital one time and they say they pass it. But then they start the investigation of me, and then they come back only within a month and find everything wrong. So just like a police power, police brutality. And so I am not black, but I am Chinese, but I'm against Roger Resurrection. I'm against Dr. Stern. So at that time, I feel like I'm a black person, and the investigator are policemen. All the evidence, I have no power to contest them. So I just shut up. And also about the 3 animals they charged me of abuse, I have a board-certified surgeon veterinary to say I'm not malpractice. I'm still within the guideline. But when the veterinary board at that time, I'm a Governor Jerry Brown's appointee, the last one on the veterinary board. The rest is George Dutmajan's Republican. You know, Republican fighting a Democrat, everything can become nasty and ugly. So I'm the victim as a Governor Jerry Brown's last Democrat appointee. And unfortunately, I was stepping on Richard Stern's toe. So he sent an investigation to me, and all those accusations, I try to forget it. I don't want to rehash it. But if you ask me why, I believe those are set up.
All right, Ms. Sokolov, next question, please.
So is it your belief that you that you had sanitary conditions at your hospital, yes or no?
Yes, if the board member, if Dr. Nunes allow, you can order the old record of my Emerald Animal Hospital back in 19, I don't know, see the date of that investigation, and there's another one within a month prior to that. I have a perfect record. So how can it turn from one perfect record to another one? So I just have to cry because I'm just a victim of police power.
Have you educated yourself as to what types of the sanitary expectations of a veterinarian hospital?
Yes, I'm a member of AHA, American Animal Hospital member. I know what the expectation is. I want to set up a good example. I want to get everything perfect, and I even develop a guideline. I'm a member of the subcommittee.
Have you been studying the information that would be necessary for you to pass your examination?
Not yet, but I will. If I'm given a chance, I will study, yes.
I don't have any further questions.
All right, I'm going to open up the questioning to the board. With regards to any requests that old information be admitted, is there any such request being asked for, Mr. Garcia? Other than what's in the petition packages, is that the extent of the evidence that
Exhibit
Mr. Ho-
A has been identified. Has it been admitted?
Both documents have been admitted into evidence with the exception of the sentence that you pointed out in the investigation report. That would only be considered as administrative hearsay if it in fact explains or supplements. Exhibit A, the letter has also been admitted. Is that the extent of the evidence?
Yes, that's the extent of our evidence. Exhibit A would be it. And at this time, I move to strike that statement, as to which I had a hearsay objection.
So the objection to strike is overruled. It will not be considered by the board if in fact it does not explain or supplement admissible evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, I'm now opening up the, any questions from the board members? Counsel, yes?
Yeah, I actually did have one more question, if you don't mind.
All right.
And it's back at the point of contention, the investigative report. So my question is, Mr. Ho,
Yes.
did you have occasion to go to the Veterinary Medical Board office and try to speak with them about your situation? Did you ever go to the board staff at the Veterinary Medical Board to speak with them?
No.
Did you ever call them?
Of course, I call a few times, but I make no threatening statement. I'm not a person big enough, cool enough to threaten anybody. I couldn't even threaten my wife. I couldn't even threaten my daughter. I couldn't even threaten anybody. Never mind the veterinary board.
Okay.
You can see a statement from Susan Grennan. She doesn't believe I would do that. It's on the package.
All right, counsel, any additional questions?
The answer is no.
I have no further questions.
All right, now I'm opening up, any questions from our board members, starting with the president to my left?
Well, my first question was in Dr. Ho's answer to Dan Sokolov's question about sanitary conditions. I thought I heard he asked if I would allow the investigation of the sanitation conditions of his hospital be allowed into consideration. First of all, I don't know if I have the power to allow more information to come forward. And also, in the opening statements from defense, asked the board not to consider anything that happened before the grant for reinstatement. So I'm not sure if that is something that you truly would want us to consider anyways.
So I'm also going to speak to this. So to the extent that there's already been a decision issued concerning that accusation, that matter is closed. Any additional evidence would be essentially impeaching something where there's already been a decision made, so the board would not be able to consider that.
Okay.
So if that answers your question.
It does. Then I only have two other questions. When you were granted reinstatement condition on you passing 3 tests, the national exam, the clinical competency exam, which is no longer in existence, and also the California state exam, you stated that I was only able to score 72 on the examination, and your license was never reinstated. Is that 72 on all 3 examinations? Did you take all 3, or did you just take one of them, and this was your score?
I cannot answer you at this time. I believe I took all 3 at that time, and I was given an average score because I was required to take all 3.
So did you pass any one of the 3?
I don't have the detailed information for you.
Okay. it seems like something that will be pretty easy to remember, but, and then the Veterinary Medical Board, we provide different types of licenses. We have a license to practice veterinary medicine. We have a license for RVTs. We now have a veterinary assistant controlled substance permit, and we have a premise permit. I'm very familiar with the prerequisites for that license and what's required while you have that license, but I'm unfamiliar with a veterinary assistant license that's administered by the California Horse Racing Board. So what are the requirements to have that license, and what does it allow you to do, and are there CE requirements to keep it up?
Well, at the time I got this, can I present this license to you?
It's in our package.
It's in the package.
Yeah.
Okay, so this license, and it was under the jurisdiction of California Horse Racing Board. I'm not familiar with the requirement. I don't have a copy. So at that time, I told them I want to do acupuncture on horses. Then they called me in, the steward called me in, and the veterinarian chief veterinarian called me in, asked me some questions, and asked me to show them, do I have a license in acupuncture? I said yes. And then they, after they do an investigation, and then maybe a week or 2 weeks later, then they say they have a meeting, and they said I'm able to do acupuncture on horses because I have a updated valid license of acupuncture in the state of California.
Okay. So you're not entirely sure what the requirements are to have that license, and
I don't have a copy. I don't know. I don't make the decision, so I was happy that they say I'm okay.
and what does that license allow you to do? Do you know?
Acupuncture
It allows you to do acupuncture.
on animal, on horses.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Yes.
So when you're doing these race horses, is there a veterinarian present?
Yes.
And where is that veterinarian?
Not eyeball to eyeball, just in the premises. He can be treating other horses in another barn, and he's there.
Okay. And where do you practice acupuncture on people?
I have an acupuncture clinic, 9918 East Garvey Avenue in City of Monterey Park.
And do you ever see animals there?
No.
There was something in the packet about an inquiry at the horse racing board, but there was no detail. And then mention said, see information later, and I couldn't find any information
Okay.
later.
I have a clear record.
There was some kind of inquiry by the horse racing board. What was that inquiry about? Yeah, it was on
It's
the
on the reinstatement.
petition for reinstatement of.
Is it Exhibit 1 or Exhibit 2?
It's under the petition for reinstatement or reduction of penalty. It's at the bottom of that.
So council, if you take a look at the petition for reinstatement or reduction of penalty page, at the very bottom, it says CHRB, see copy of inquiry history. Mr. Ho, if you could, council, could you please show Mr. Ho?
Let me see.
Mr. Garcia, do you know what that refers to?
I do not, Your Honor.
So, this is from the investigator. He says, see copy of inquiry history. I don't have a copy. It should be on the, if it's inquiry, it should be in the public information. We can pull it up from the computer. I have,
Are you saying that you did not prepare this document?
prepare which document? The inquiry?
petition, this is your petition for reinstatement.
Oh, this one,
The entire, that, what you signed on the last page,
okay.
pardon me,
Yeah,
this is your petition that, did you prepare this petition?
yeah, of course, but I don't have a copy of the inquiry.
But you included this information in your packet, correct? You included the statement, see
Inquiry.
copy of inquiry, correct? This is your statement,
Yes,
yes. So, did you have a copy of the inquiry history, if you're referring to
I
it?
think I saw it somewhere. Give me some chance, maybe it's out of order.
All right, please take a look. And Mr. Garcia, I just want to clarify, in regards to inquiry history, clarifying, is that just simply a search of the California Horse Racing Board's system to determine if there's been any investigations or
Yeah.
complaints?
I believe that's what it is, Your Honor, but I cannot say definitively. Like I
Like
said,
we're here, yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay.
Okay, please, okay, one at a time. Mr. Ho, you're represented by counsel. Mr. Garcia speaks on your behalf unless there's a question pending, please.
Okay,
Mr. Garcia.
if you look at the petition, there's a category 8, status of other licenses. And the 5th page in, these are not paginated, but the 5th page in, you'll see licensee rulings inquiry.
Mr. Garcia, please approach with the document you're looking at, so.
I will. This is the packet. You have it.
All right, so we're just gonna pass this down, we're gonna take a look. This is the inquiry history, correct?
I believe that's what he was referring
All right,
to.
if you could pass that down, please, and just take a look what we're looking at. And that's behind number 8 in Exhibit 1.
Okay, so on that it says there was a fine of $200.
All right, I'm gonna hand that back to Mr. Garcia so he can take a look at it. Thank you. It's under
No.
Exhibit 1, the board's package. I'm sorry, no, it's under the petition package. The first exhibit, Exhibit 1. And if you look, it's on the very first, it says table of contents. It says status of other licenses. That's behind number 8. Everyone there?
Okay, number 8, okay, thank you.
No,
There's no question pending.
sorry.
All right. And so your question, please, board member.
Why were you fined $200?
Okay, can I answer?
Yes.
Okay, I believe $200 was fine because I'm a trainer. I was late in declare some equipment, some condition about my horses that going to race in Santa Anita. So the steward fined, I did not report it, I was late in reporting, so I was fined $200, which I pay.
Okay. Do you receive any other veterinary journals? Any other veterinary literature besides the California magazine?
Sometimes I receive some journal from my veterinary school as an alumni. And,
But you don't subscribe to any other journals?
no,
Okay, because the California magazine is more just, it's more of
yeah,
a magazine.
I
that's
will.
so
I will
political.
if I get more involved in.
Okay.
I did before, but then I feel like I'm outsider. I'm outside the gate of veterinary practice, so I feel, a different feeling if you're in my shoes.
Okay.
If I'm given a chance, if I'm a veterinary, of course. If I'm working with my daughters, of course.
Right, that's my question.
Any additional questions?
I just wanted to ask a follow-up question on the horse racing board vet assistant. Does that mean that you can only do acupuncture on racetracks, at racetracks?
Yes.
Okay, that's where you can practice. That's all I have, thank you.
Hi, Mr. Ho. Is your daughter a vet?
Not yet. She wants to be a vet. I have 4 daughters, and so almost everyone wants to be a veterinarian. I don't know why, but I'm afraid don't feel very proud of encouraging them because I lost my license. So if I get it back, then I'm in a different position.
So if you were to be granted to take the test and you passed, who would you work for?
Of course, you can see those veterinarians, especially the one that come in. This one, I have a job to work for him if I have a license, and I work for Dr. Odama, Dr. Beltran, or many other, or even work for the veterinary college. Yes.
Just so the record is clear, Mr. Ho referred to this one and raised the document. He was referring to Exhibit A, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay, and then when you were talking about why you wanted to be a vet again, you referred to some stem cell testing.
Yes.
What was that you were referring to that has your interest? What was this testing that you were involved in or something? Can you go back to the stem cell testing and explain that, please?
Okay. It's a relatively new technology. You draw some blood from an animal, and you centrifuge. Centrifuge means you spin it, and after 5 minutes, the red cells separate from the rest of the blood, like the serum or the plasma. So now, in between, there's a name called Buffy coat.
Say that again?
Buffy coat, Buffy, Buffy. Buffy coat, COAT, yes. So this means all the platelets are there. Now we find out the platelet are stem cell and in the category. So if you withdraw, put it in the syringe and inject it into the joint of the animal, they do fantastic. They will regenerate the joint, and if you put a catheter to go all the way to the heart, they regenerate the heart, become treating congestive heart failure. You inject it to the liver, it take care of the liver failure. Stem cell is just like a baby. And
so where have you been exposed to this technology that you have found that it's so exciting?
Okay, now everybody knows. If you go into YouTube, you can get it. And I find it exciting because I'm associated with Dr. Moses Chow in the Western University of Health Science, and they do some stem cell research. And
Have you gone there have you been in a clinical setting where you have seen this or participated somehow or anything?
yes.
And where was that and when?
Okay. As a matter of fact, Dr. Beltran has done a lot of stem cell injection to dogs with arthritis, with exciting and good news. So in his animal health care center in the city of Montreal Park on Pomona Boulevard,
Okay.
where my daughter worked.
Okay, got it. All right, and then this other, going back to this assistant, I guess I'm very confused. I thought the Veterinary Medical Board only had licensees that pertains to veterinary medicine. So this veterinary assistant with the horse racing board is all new information to me, and I'm very confused by what it is and how you get it, and so, I mean, I don't know if that's for after this to discuss or closed session, but I mean, I'm.
So right now would just be your opportunity to ask Mr. Ho any questions you have.
Okay, let me try that. So, did you have to take a written exam, or was it just a verbal exam with the horse racing board veterinarians in order to get this license?
Okay. Just verbal exam, and mainly they allow me doing only acupuncture.
So there was nothing written, it was just an interview process with them?
Yes.
And did they ask you about how you do acupuncture or your history on it? What kind of questions came up?
Main thing is, do I have acupuncture to treat other thing? I say, people. So I'm a licensed by the Acupuncture Board of State of California to do acupuncture. So-
Right, on humans,
Yeah,
and
on
so
human.
did the horse racing people then say, hey, can you do it to horses? Have you tried that? Does it work? And can you come do it to our horses? I mean, how did it play out exactly? I'm just wondering, I have no experience in this, so I'm just asking you.
Well, I have been very interested in acupuncture, and I have treated people, I treated horses, and so I believe based on my current active license with a clear status in acupuncture, they say, you're licensed to acupuncture, and acupuncture can do in people, in horses, and dogs and cats, and there's a confusing issue. I'm not the one that make a mistake. I'm not the one that. So I just asked if I can do horses. They have a meeting, California Horse Racing Board meeting. They have a stewards meeting, and they don't give me right away. They give me almost a month later after they have the meeting. So I don't have the report of the meeting.
And what date was that, or what year, or anything?
I don't remember the date.
Okay, 2000 and,
Maybe they
that was issued in what, 08 or something, or? Does it say an issuance date on it?
no.
Okay, all right, that's all. I think, let me just make sure. Oh, I know. Okay, so back in the 90s, when you were a veterinarian at one time, then you got your license revoked, and then you wanted to be reinstated, and you had an opportunity to take the test again. Now, veterinarian medicine was fresh because you had already been practicing it, correct? 30 years later now, it's not so fresh anymore, and you have to start from scratch. So my question is, why do you think now you could pass these tests that you couldn't pass 30 years ago when veterinary medicine was fresh on your mind?
I don't know how to answer you perfectly, but if you allow me, I took the exam, I couldn't pass, so the trauma or failure was so bad, so I don't want to see again. I don't want to talk to you again. I don't want to do anything with you there again. So I was afraid, and was depressed, and now accept the fact. I was depressed and anger and acceptance, and now my daughter want to be a veterinarian. I have 4 daughters, and I don't know why they want to be a veterinarian. I try to talk them into doing something else, but the more I talk to them not to become a veterinarian, the more they hate me. So I just love them. I should get it back because I've invested 22 years of my life in the profession of veterinary medicine. It's not going to go away. So after 22 years, and I think I can do it. So
Okay.
I'm not telling you I can pass. I don't guarantee myself. I don't guarantee anybody, but I will try.
All right, thank you for answering all my questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, any questions to my right?
Thank you. Mr. Ho, I'm looking at your curriculum vitae, thank you, and interested in the issue of the acupuncture that you practice on animals. I see that under item 9, you have Samra University for equine acupuncture. Is that a certificate course? Can you explain that?
Yes, yes. Samuel University is still existing. They merged with then they bought some other smaller university, and their location is in Los Angeles.
And what did the course involve?
So, a prerequisite is a minimum 2 to 4 years of undergraduate degree with a GPA or 3.0 or better, and then it's a 3-year program. I think it's 4 years now, and they give you a degree in acupuncture.
That was your general acupuncture degree?
Yes.
I'm referring to item 9, which indicates in parentheses equine acupuncture. Is that a separate course or certificate program?
They have. I don't know if they have this course or now. From time to time they have some expert professor, visiting professor from Korea, from China, from Taiwan, and they teach some courses. Yes.
And did you take a course in equine acupuncture?
Yes.
And have you taken any courses or done any certificates in acupuncture on other animals?
Certificate in other animal.
In dogs or cats, for example?
Well, they have some seminar, yes. They still have some seminar from time to time.
And you have taken these seminars?
Not lately, no.
And do you have any certificates in dog or cat acupuncture?
Dogs and cat acupuncture, I don't believe so. I don't have certificate, but I went to the seminar.
Thank you very much. That's my only question.
Yes.
I have no questions.
Again, I'd just like to comment that our job is consumer protection, and I do have some concerns with you being out of practice for 26 years, that we're going to be able to assure consumer protection, and we're going to have to structure whatever we do with that in mind. So just to let you know where I'm coming from. When you were doing this acupuncture on animals, let's say your example at Dr. Beltran's office, were these clients coming to see you, or were they coming to Dr. Beltran and then working with him?
Mainly, they don't come to see me. Mainly, they come to see Dr. Beltran.
You know, you say mainly. Do some come to see you directly?
No. So they see Dr. Beltran, and Dr. Beltran recommend some of the dog have hip dysplasia, some arthritis, and some dermatitis, and so Dr. Beltran recommend, you want to try acupuncture treatment. Okay. Some say no, some say maybe, some say yes, and then Dr. Beltran call me and schedule an appointment for me to his premises. Okay. And there's always veterinarian on the premises. They have 4 veterinarian. They open 7 days a week.
Okay, and the same question as far as the equine practice. How did you meet your clients there?
Well, the same thing. The veterinarian called me. I don't actively advertise for new patient, no.
Okay. I noticed the certificates for your attendance at Western Conference.
Yes.
They have a range of dates and some CE credits.
Yes.
The courses are not itemized and it's not signed. That hardly makes it a verification of attendance.
Well, you have to pay, first of all, and then there's a daily attendance, and you have to show up, and then there's several courses, and you have to sign in, and then at the end, and then they calculate that, and they give it to you at the end.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any additional questions? Yes?
The card that you were showing us before from the racing board, is that your trainer's card, or is that?
This is a veterinary assistant.
Okay.
It's in our package.
Yeah, but I can't read it very well.
All
Be
right, counsel, if you could
approved?
please approach with the card.
Yes.
Your Honor, might we all?
Yes, please. I'm gonna go ahead and start it, so everybody can take a look at it. On my left. Yes. And Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
can you direct us in the package to where this copy of this particular card is located?
Yes, it's in that same section 8,
And that's of exhibit 1.
and that would be page 1, I believe. There's copies of 4 different licenses, and the one in the lower left-hand corner, I believe, is the one, oh no, that's Trainer. Oh, I apologize, I thought it was there.
Your Honor, can I ask one last question before
Yes,
we
ma'am.
wrap it up?
Yes,
Whenever-
I'll open up in just a moment.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think it's in there.
It's not in there, Your Honor. The one that's in there is a Trainer license, not the assistant vet.
Right, is this something that you want included into evidence, Mr. Garcia?
Yes, Your Honor.
Right, is there photocopying capability? What we're gonna do is before closing remarks, we're gonna go off the record. We'll have a photocopy of this made for the package, and it'll be marked as an exhibit.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Right,
I apologize. Like I said, I just came into the case yesterday, so
right, so I'm gonna go ahead and hold on to this until we take the break, and then it'll be returned after a photocopy is made.
okay.
All right, any additional questions? Yes,
You said you're a horse trainer as well?
Yes,
And what kind of study and testing, is there some kind of certification of that you had to pass a test and whatnot, and how long ago was that? And are you still using it?
yes. There's a test to become a trainer. There's a written test, and there's a practical test. And before you do that, you have to spend at least 5 years in the horse track, race track, like the groom, a horse exercise rider, or a jockey, or as assistant manager, and then you have to go through a board or panel of trainers, and they have to, of course, you can't walk in there as a stranger, and unless you have a other license like in New York or Florida or some other jurisdiction, and then they approve it, and then you take a test. I think there's 100 questions, and you have to get 75% correct, and then they have a practical test. They give you a horse, see how you manage the horse, they ask you the training program, the horse nutritional feeding program, and the healthcare problem, and of course, including some medication knowledge as a trainer.
The trainers give furosemide shots, is that right?
A trainer doesn't give it. Trainer required to ask permission to have a veterinarian give furosemide, which is a LASIK.
Right.
Most of the time, they give it before the horse racing, 4 hours before the horse racing.
Do you still utilize that license? Is it still valid? Do you utilize
No.
it? Are you a trainer at all?
I'm still a trainer. I'm still using the license, yes,
Okay.
but I don't give furosemide.
Okay, so you are an assistant to the vet and a trainer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
all right, any further questions? Yes.
Yeah, I did forget one question. You were talking about working at Western Veterinary School. Did you have a position there? Were you on staff?
My title is facilitator. Facilitator is a group of veterinarian student. I'm just acting as an instructor, as what you call that, a TA, teaching assistant, to help the veterinary student. They gave me some question, They gave me the answer. So they gave me the case, and then just as a guide to the veterinary student.
Is this a paid position?
Yes, they give me $50 a day,
Thank you.
which is not very much.
All right, any additional questions from board members? Mr. Garcia, any additional questions for Mr. Hill?
No, Your Honor,
All
thank you.
right, any additional cross-examination questions, counsel?
No.
All right, we're gonna take a break before closing remarks to make a photocopy of the assistant to vet license and then brief closing remarks off the record.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
During the break, a photocopy was made of the assistant to vet license that Mr. Hookup went to Nexted Mark as Exhibit B. The original license had been returned to Mr. Hill, and photocopy was sent by the school board members. Ms. Sokoloff, any objections to Exhibit B?
No.
Oh, and Exhibit B is admitted. All right, since petitioner has the burden of proof, closing remarks, Mr. Garcia, from you first.
Thank you very much, Your Honor, and I want to thank all of the board members for their attentiveness and their decisive questions. I appreciate it. The board has promulgated a regulation in the California Code of Regulations, Section 2041, the criteria for rehabilitation. This is an interesting case because usually when we're appearing on a petition for reinstatement, has to do with some definitive act or omission that occurred that resulted in the revocation. And then we look back to that act and look back at it and see how severe was it, how serious was it, how many years have elapsed since it occurred. We look at all that criteria. Here, as I mentioned in my opening statement, I believe that we should be focused on what Dr. or Mr. Ho has done since 1996. That was the termination of that 5-year window he had to pass the examinations and obviously failed to pass them. So here's what the board has promulgated in terms of the criteria for rehabilitation. You look at the act, the nature and severity of the act under consideration. And once again, I think it would be erroneous to go back and look at the acts that led to the revocation. One of them occurred in 1977. That's when he first applied for licensure in California. And then the other incidents that council talked about, the inspection of the premises and the 3 cases of negligence occurred in 1985. So we're looking at 39 and 31 years ago for those particular acts, but I don't think that they're relevant. What's relevant is what's happened since 1996. And the other, and what's happened is that he failed to pass those examinations. And I think the only question that would come to my mind if I were sitting where you are in terms of how I'm going to assess this case is, why did he give up? He had 5 years to do this, 5 years to pass the examinations. He testified that he only tried it once. There were 3 exams, tried each one once, didn't pass, and then just gave up. And my question that occurs to me is, why? Well, he kind of answers that question in part in his testimony and also in his personal statement. And he refers to being obviously very disappointed. I think he used the word depressed in his testimony, frustrated, disillusioned, and he lost confidence. He was afraid to take it again because he was afraid to fail again. And interesting, when counsel was asking about how many times he took that particular component of the medical board examination, level 3 or whatever it was, I think we got up to number 10, 10 tries. And I think about myself, I took the bar exam in 1976. And if I had failed it, I'm not sure I would have had the resolve to try again, because there's so much emotion is invested into it, and so much effort is invested in it, that would have been such a letdown that I'm not sure I would have been able to recoup and try it again. So I think that's what happened to Mr. Ho. He took that examination after he had practiced for about 20 years as a veterinarian, and then the numbers come back and tell him, you're not good enough. You fall short of the mark. And so obviously he went into that low point in his life where he just kind of gave up at that point. that's I think the act we're looking at right now. But it's also very instructive that he didn't just wallow in his frustration and disappointment. He went out and got all these other licenses. And he did it in part because he had to care for his family, obviously, but I think there's something about Mr. Ho here that's kind of he's got a resolve of some kind to keep going and keep trying. If not at the veterinary examinations, then I'll try something else. And so he was able to obtain these other licenses, professional licenses that required examinations, that required testing, they required a demonstration of fitness to act in a particular capacity. I know the board has expressed some concern and some, I guess, puzzlement over this assistant vet license that the horse racing board has issued, and frankly, I don't have the answer for it. The only explanation that Mr. Ho gave was that he appeared before a panel and they considered it, they mulled it over, and they determined that since he had a license to practice acupuncture, and since he was involved in the horse racing industry as a trainer, that maybe you could combine the two, so they granted this particular license. But I think it shows his resolve, his determination to keep going and not give up. 70 years old, he's in good health, he still has some years ahead of him to be able to contribute as a veterinarian, which is obviously his love, his life love. But he wants to go back to it, and now he has additional there's additional factors operating that are kind of pushing him in that direction, namely his daughters who have expressed an interest in veterinary medicine. So he wants to be there as their dad and as their role model, and so he wants to resume the practice that he loves. The other factor that you're to look at is evidence of any commission of any act subsequent to what's happened. Well, I don't see anything negative. I see a lot of positives, and I've just gone through them. Obtaining these other licenses, doing this volunteer work that he's engaged in, taking the CME credits and continuing education courses, reading the journals. They may not have been the most professional journals that you might want to see him read, but there were still journals in the area of veterinary medicine. So he's trying to keep abreast. It's been many, many years. As Dr. Sullivan has pointed out, it's a long time since he's practiced, and so there is a concern about protecting the public interest and protecting the consumers, protecting their pets and their animals, their loved animals. And I think that by requiring Mr. Ho to pass those examinations again, maybe one of them doesn't exist anymore, as Dr. Nunez pointed out, but to pass these examinations, that's the threshold. I mean, that's going to tell you if he's going to be able to practice or not. So it's up to him now. He says he can do it. He's had plenty of time to think about it, and he's determined that he can try it again and give it his best shot. And obviously, as Dr. Sullivan pointed out, we're concerned about protecting the public interest. So if he were to pass the examination, then of course the board can fashion whatever terms and conditions of probation the board deems appropriate to protect the public interest. So I certainly understand the board's concerns. That's the mission of this board, to protect the public interest, and I think it can be done by balancing Dr. Ho's dream of returning to the practice of veterinary medicine with protection for the public interest. The extent to which the applicant has complied with any terms of probation. Well, obviously, the principal term was to pass those examinations, and he wasn't able to do that. So we've gone through that. He wasn't able to do that. That's a matter of record. That's why we're here today. And finally, evidence, if any, of rehabilitation. And once again, we look at the petition there. He talks about these other licenses that he's obtained. You'll give me a moment, I apologize. Well, he talked about the other licenses. He's talked about his activities since 1996. He's talked about the volunteer work that he's engaged in. And by the way, there are documents in this petition packet to corroborate his testimony on his volunteer work and the CME credits that he's taken as well. So those are the factors that you're to look at in assessing rehabilitation. And I think that overall, I mean, there have been some questions, obviously, about what he's been doing for the last 10 years. And I had a question about why it took him so long to come back here if he really wants to practice veterinary medicine. I think he's answered it, that he got over this problem with, of this fear of failure. And maybe taking these other examinations, these other licensees examinations, and passing them has given him the self-confidence, I apologize, self-confidence to come back and give it another try. I think the important thing to note is that there is really nothing of any significance that I've heard in this hearing today or seen that would weigh against granting this petition, other than the period of time that's passed, that's elapsed. Apologize. And once again, that could be addressed by condition precedent, requiring him to pass the competency examinations and any terms and conditions of probation that can be imposed designed to protect the public interest. So overall, I think that we've established and met our burden of proof on having this petition granted. I can understand the reservations that have been expressed by the board members. I certainly understand them. If I were sitting there, I'd have the same questions. But I think they've been answered. And I think the only thing we're asking for now is, give me another chance. Give me another try at it. I think I can do it this time. And if he can't, well, there's no harm to the public interest because no license will issue unless he passes that exam. So I think overall, you weigh all of the competing interests, the scales tip in favor of granting this petition. And I thank you very much for this. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman Sokoloff. Any closing remarks?
Yes, just a few. I'll also draw your attention to California Code of Regulations, Section 2041, which sets forth the criteria that you need to be looking at in terms of deciding whether or not to grant his petition. And there are essentially, there's essentially 5 criteria, but I really think that 3 are most important here. And the first is the nature and severity of the acts or crimes under consideration as grounds for denial. And while they did happen a long time ago, and while they might not appear to be as relevant in this case as the fact that he didn't pass the exam, according to the regulation, the act that he did get originally disciplined for is relevant. So that is in somehow should be part of what you are considering. And those acts were various acts of fraud, and then also some unsanitary and other conditions at his veterinary place of work. So it depends on how you want to weigh that and how you want to balance it, but doesn't mean that it's not part of the equation. So you need to think about that in your determination. And the failure to pass the exam is significant because I think it's significant in terms of not only just the fact that he didn't pass, but it was that he took the exam at a time where he was in the best position comparatively to be taking an exam. It was after he was studied and prepared and working, and it was 26 years ago when he was arguably more fresh on the issues and the questions. So that's something I think that is worth weighing. Another of the criteria is that I think is significant, that is the time that has elapsed since the commission of the act. And while it has been 26 years, and that's a long time, I think the fact that it was 26 years and he was poised to take it 26 years ago and didn't pass, I think that's significant in terms of your decision as to whether or not to grant him that opportunity now, 26 years later, when, going into my third point of argument, when I don't know if the information that he's provided in his packet for rehabilitation is sufficient to weigh in favor of granting this. He has several other types of licenses. He did testify that he attempted to become a medical doctor, but was unable to pass the third board. I think they're called the boards, the third portion of that. And he tried several times to do that. I don't think there's been testimony, enough testimony, if at all, or evidence provided in his packet of rehabilitation to indicate his readiness to take and pass this exam. I think there's a desire to take and pass it, but I'm not so sure that there's evidence of readiness. Has he taken relevant courses? Has he been studying on his own? There's evidence that he's received and testimony that he read some magazines, but there was an acknowledgement that those magazines might not have been technical to the point of maybe readying him for this examination. I think there needs to be more evidence, either by way of documentation or testimony, to indicate his current ability to take and pass this exam. And I query, if even offering that opportunity at this point might be a waste of his time, because if he doesn't pass, then he's going to be in the same situation that he is right now. And maybe the better situation would be for him to come before you when he has more of a proven record, at least of being ready to take the exam. And I'm not convinced, based on this information, that he would pass it at this point. So I'll rest with that.
Mr. Garcia, because petitioner has the burden of proof, any last rebuttal, very briefly, please, close your remarks.
I'll be very brief. I think it's incorrect to kind of predetermine his ability or inability to pass the examination. That's not the issue here. The issue is whether he's done anything in his life for the last 20 years, 1996, whatever that is, anything, any kind of misconduct that would warrant a denial of the application or denial of the opportunity to take that examination again. I don't think we should be looking at and prejudging him in terms of, well, he passed this time. We don't know. He said he's going to give it a shot. He's going to give it his best shot. And he was very candid when he says, I can't guarantee that I'll pass. But I think all he's asking for is the opportunity to be able to take the exam again, and there's nothing in this record, nothing in terms of any conduct or misconduct of any kind that would preclude that opportunity. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Garcia, is the matter submitted for the board's consideration?
Submit it, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Hogloff, is the matter submitted?
Yes.
All right, the matter is submitted and the record is closed. We are off the record.
Thank you.
I have a form that I will sign that gives information on how to obtain a transcript of the hearing if you wish to obtain a transcript. And then after that, you're free to go.
Very nice to meet you.
Pleasure meeting you. Pleasure. I think I've seen your name. You have.
Nice to have met you, Mr. Hook.
Okay.
I feel like I have.
I think I do medical board stuff. Every once in a while I branch into another area.
Have you ever done any administrative nursing?
I've done a little bit of VRM.
Maybe, I just feel like you've
Maybe.
been before.
Well, I remember I think I've seen your name on several
You've
things.
probably seen my name. I supervise a lot of people, so that might have been it. And I'm on all of their paperwork
So you
and
fax
stuff.
me all these documents like Tuesday night.
But we'll be taking a short lunch break.
Yeah, well, you did, given that, you did it great.
Thank you.
Good job.
Unusual case.
From our break, and we will go immediately into closed session.